in them. Just repeating pretty much what all of the reporters and the anchors have been saying. You don't know what's in them. Chemicals, seeing people online wading in some of these waters, swimming in some of them, trying to drive through them. It's just not safe, and it's very much not smart, especially because first responders will have to get to you, and it puts them in jeopardy as well. So even if you're in like a residential, for the most part, our map is looking green, but that's because everyone's pretty much hunkered down, which is where they should be. Now, if you are thinking about, making a move, I would recommend at the very least waiting until, daylight. Give those first responders, once again, those first couple of hours of daylight so they can clear out some of the debris that's in the roads. I'm sure, I know Larissa Scott mentioned earlier, I heard her mention that there were some down power lines she saw, some tree branches, and even though it wasn't as bad as maybe she anticipated, it still is not safe. So we do want to reiterate that. And I also want to remind you to give us a follow on Twitter at Tampa Bay Traffic. That way, if you don't see me pop up on your screen as much, you can still get all of your updates right there at your fingertips. Dia?
All right, thank you, Jazz. Of course, safety is the top priority here. We want to give you some power outage updates now. It looks like crews are beginning to restore outages throughout our viewing area. Remember, in our last update at 4 this morning, we told you that 2.4 million people in Florida were without power. These latest updates are from 5:30 this morning. As of right now, Florida Power and Light is reporting around 225,000 people are without power in Sarasota. That means in an hour, crews restored power to more than 1,000 homes. That's huge progress.
It's huge progress. Just updated this number, too. Over 159,000 people in Manatee County without power. That is a decrease from when it was over 170,000 people reported to be without power at 4 a.m.
Okay, now we want to go to give you an update in Pinellas County. 190,000 people, 190,419 customers without power right now. They're still, again, hopefully they're making some progress there too. But we'll continue to check these numbers throughout the morning as well.
And right now, TECO is reporting over 217,000 customers without power in Hillsborough County. That number has not changed from our last update.
I did find out that that was 1,000 less than we reported the last at the 4 o'clock in Pinellas County. So Pinellas County is definitely making some progress there. Polk County now, which is experiencing the worst of Tropical Storm Ian, now reporting an increase in power outages. No surprise here. TECO is reporting more than 191,000 customer outages.
An update on Pasco County now, where more than 43,000 people without power. We will continue to provide updates, let you guys know as power begins to be restored across our viewing area.
And we talked about Polk County right in the thick of it in terms of dealing with Tropical Storm Ian. The storm is passing through that area as it makes its way to the East Coast. Our Chad Mills has been stationed in Lakeland checking out the damage there.
Well, we are in a portion of Lakeland known as Tiger Town. That's because it's near Publix Field, the stadium where the Detroit Tigers do their spring training. And just looking around the homes around the stadium kind of tells the story of what people will likely wake up to here in Lakeland and other parts of Polk County this morning. There is damage. It's pretty widespread, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty minor. Most people are going to wake up, find they have palm fronds, loose debris, small branches, stuff like that they'll have to clean up in the coming hours or days. Let's just take a look around in this general area right here. You see this is an apartment complex or maybe a senior living facility. You don't see any huge branches down here, but in the middle of this complex, right in this area there is some flooding. It looks like a low-lying area. Doesn't seem to be causing that much of an issue, but it's something they'll deal with this morning. Over here, though, something a little more significant. This looks like an oak tree that fell in the middle of this road, actually making this road impassable right now. A little bit of a gust there. This is not a major artery by any stretch of the imagination, just a neighborhood road that leads down to one of the many lakes of Lakeland off in the distance behind it. So not a huge issue. There are detours around this, but again, kind of shows you what people are going to wake up to this morning here in Lakeland particularly. There's widespread damage, but in the grand scheme of things, especially when you look at what happened in Southwest Florida, all pretty minor. And just talking to, people out and about this morning, they, have that perspective and know that in the grand scheme of things so far, based on what we've seen, they're pretty fortunate here. We will keep monitoring Lakeland, check out other parts of town as well. For now, in Lakeland, Chad Mills, ABC Action News.
Thank you so much, Chad. We've been promising to show you this video for a while. Take a look at that. That's not somebody out there just having a good time on a jet ski. Those are first responders, fire rescue teams in Naples, rescuing people stuck in floodwaters, having emergencies. They got on those jet skis because the streets there are flooded, and this is the only way that they could get to people in need of help. But again, first responders doing what they have to do to make sure that people are safe. Bring out the jet skis. That shows you just how deep that water is in Naples and the streets there.
It shows you what kind of storm surge was endured there. Take a look at this video. Strong winds from Hurricane Ian just tore the roof off this house in Naples. Looks like the entire roof there and some pieces underneath of it from that building also went flying. I'm looking at this. I don't know if that's a roof of a building or a carport attached or something like that. Either way, that's an incredible video of damage caught on camera caused by this storm. And crews in Sarasota County got to work early this morning assessing damage and clearing roads. Things like fallen trees, debris, standing water, down power lines, all blocking roads there.
Yeah, the county's tactical first in teams got started after midnight. They're clearing roads to make sure that first responders can reach hospitals and floodwater pumping stations. The sheriff's office says crews are out there in force, making sure that they get that work done. And we just appreciate them doing that so much and hope that they stay safe. All right, want to go back to Jada Williams now. She was in Sarasota during the thick of the storm, during the worst of the storm. She was at a shelter with about 300 people, no doubt very scared, very nervous hours throughout the night, overnight hours. But she talked about, a little bit of levity, too, a little bit of, light moments with the kids in that shelter there because they're hunkered down right now in an elementary school.
Yeah, a little bit of sleepless nights there, a lot of sleepless nights all in one area, but nonetheless, the attitudes seem to be good. Let's go to her now. Jada?
Yeah, guys, so I actually ventured outside of the shelter for a little bit. Didn't have to go far to find damage. This is directly across the street. You can see it, there's a fence right here. Not far from there, this fence has been uprooted. Now, again, directly across the street where I have been telling you all this morning that over at Fruitville Elementary School, there wasn't that much damage, just the debris from the tree limbs that fell. And across the street, here is a fence, a long stretch of fence that has been knocked over from those winds overnight. And this isn't the only damage that we've seen. We didn't go very far down the street, but the stoplights are out. There are street lights that are out. There are homes without power, but quite possibly the worst of them all is the fact that we saw downed power lines here. Now that's on Fruitville Road, not far at all from where we stayed and we sought shelter during Hurricane Ian. And as I mentioned, the school didn't lose power, but there are places around not far at all that lost those power lines still down in the street right now. So this is just a reminder that if you decide to get in the car and be safe, be cautious. We saw a lot of people who were, driving at a normal pace, not realizing that there are these other dangers that come after the storm. So if you don't have to go anywhere, stay put, stay where you are, wait until those emergency responders can fix things like the down power lines and other down trees, other issues that we saw on our brief journey outside of the walls of that shelter. But if you do, for whatever reason, have to go out, just drive slowly and remain safe.
Thank you so much, Jada. So glad that conditions are clearing there. As we're beginning to see with all of our crews in the field, the conditions are beginning to get much better. Sarah Hollenbeck, another crew that's been out. She was in the Brandon area earlier, James. I think she moved over to Riverview last time we saw her.
I think she did too. Let's see what things are looking like there, Sarah. Riverview, is that where you're moving to? If that's the case, we're pretty curious of what things look like there.
Yeah, so right now we are at the Alafaya River. This is the Williams boat ramp. Yesterday we showed you this area because this was one of the areas that the water was sucked out from, and this area leads to the Hillsborough Bay. Now it's hard to see because it is so dark, but that water is back now. It's back to normal. This is what it looks like on an ordinary day where the water is back. But yesterday, all the boats that were out here were actually basically uprooted from the water and were just floating on top of the soil that is at the bottom of the Alafaya River. So this is really good to see that this water has come back into the Alafaya River, which leads to the Hillsborough Bay, because that means that we didn't see the storm surge that we were talking about. So that's a really, really good thing to see. And it seems that it just sort of filled back into this area, and we're not seeing any of the issues that everyone was really worried about. Now, yesterday, there were people similar to Bayshore that were just walking out onto the lack of water, I guess, here at the Alafaya River. And luckily, nobody was hurt. But back out here, we've got the water back, and things are looking a heck of a lot better than they were yesterday.
Sarah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, we just wanted to double check with Greg, and the surge warnings canceled. That water returning to a level that our weather team expects to be perfectly normal and fine. I should try asking a question. That would really help Sarah, wouldn't it? I apologize for that. Hey, Sarah, are you planning on moving around and surveying anything else?
Yeah, we've been moving all around the area. We've really driven a lot of Brandon and Riverview, and what we found is power outages for sure in certain areas, down trees, and now the Alafaya River that's got the water back, but not seeing a lot of damage outside of that. But we'll continue to drive around and see what we can find and bring you all the latest updates, because we know everyone is waking up this morning and just wanting to know what happened and how does my neighborhood look. So we're out here for you doing just that.
Absolutely. Sounds like the Brandon area so far looking pretty good. We're glad to hear that, Sarah. Be careful as you drive around. Are you seeing any people on the road with you?
Hardly any, which is very good. That we're like only maybe 15 cars all morning since we've been out since 2 a.m. So that's really good to see. Very few people moving around.
That's certainly good news. Thank you, Sarah. We'll check back in with you a little bit later on, especially as the sun begins to come up.
No doubt. Let's bring you a little bit closer to downtown Tampa now. Ian, of course, downgraded to a tropical storm at this point. Crews can now get out in certain neighborhoods to survey the damage.
That's what they've been wanting to do for the longest. JJ Burton is live in Seminole Heights. He's been checking out the damage there. James has been especially concerned about that area. That's your neck of the woods.
Sure is.
You told me earlier you didn't have power. JJ, what kind of damage are you seeing?
Not much damage. We saw some trees down, but not anything too serious. Some trees are down, and so there are crews out clearing up those trees. Also some down power lines, but they're not live. Power outages, that's the big story here. We're no power here at this intersection at East Hillsborough and North Nebraska. And you can see that TPD officer parked right there. They're at most of the busy intersections without power, directing traffic, making sure people know. And you can hear the wind whipping in the back. There was a sign over there that looks like it just fell. And so we do have the wind, but for the most part, there's not too much damage. And that's a good thing. Power outages, that's the big thing. It sucks to have power, but it could have been much, much worse. Again, TPD officers are at all major intersections, directing traffic, and we have power outage. You guys listed some of those, and we have those numbers on our website as well. The bulk of the outages are down in Sarasota, but again, more than 217,000 customers in Hillsborough County without power. A lot of customers in Pinellas County. There are some crews working, but with TECO, like we said, we talked to a TPD officer this morning, and they've been in constant contact with TECO and said that they're not going to start working on those power lines with TECO until later this morning.
It is nice, JJ, it's nice behind you to see a clear street there in that area. It's an older part of Tampa. There's a lot of trees, a lot of oak trees. Certainly a few down in my neighborhood. Give us an idea as you've driven through at least the Seminole Heights area of anything people should be worried about that you've seen. Any roads blocked, anything like that?
It's really dark, so you definitely, if you are going to be out walking or anything like that, or even driving, make sure your high beams are on. If you're walking, make sure you have your flashlight on. It's definitely dark. We saw some trees down in some areas, but not many where we drove around to. But we're going to go check some other areas. And also with those down power lines, because there's no power in some of those neighborhoods, make sure you have a flashlight on if you're going to be walking, or those high beams on just in those areas, because that's most of that damage.
Yep, let first responders get out, survey it first, and then it might be safe to get out and check things out. Thank you so much, JJ.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like he's seen anything major down there. I know Greg lives nearby there. He got home last night and did see a couple of roads blocked, a couple of closures.
Right.
A little while ago. So
Yeah.
it's a good sign. We'll check back in with JJ in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, again, just let first responders, get out and just kind of check things out before you get out and start driving around again. The northern half of the Bay Area didn't suffer the extreme damage, thankfully, that we now fear that Fort Myers and Port Charlotte may have. We're nervous about the extent of the damage and what we're going to see when the sun finally rises.
By all accounts, Pinellas County very lucky here, just like it was with Hurricane Irma 5 years ago. Reporter Clay Lepard has more from Gulfport.
Those waking up in and around the Tampa Bay area, some will find trees, most not dealing with water issues, and overall, a sigh of relief.
I thought for sure we would get torn up.
For George Hankins, his coastal community of Gulfport was flooded with fear leading up to Hurricane Ian, once thought to be where the center of the storm would hit. His neighborhood even issued a mandatory evacuation order over concerns of potential storm surge nearing 10 feet. Still, he and others stayed.
Nobody left that I know of.
Instead, after a night of whipping winds, he and his neighbors, for the most part, only have to deal with some toppled tree branches, scattered power outages, and small debris.
Trees are still standing, which I'm surprised about. No car damage. Lights are still on. Power, we're good over here.
Days of preparation and only hours now needed for cleanup.
What's next?
Huh? Hopefully the sun.
In Gulfport, near Tampa, I'm Clay Lepard reporting.
Law enforcement is still urging you to stay inside this morning while utility crews deal with any downed power lines and possible tree limbs that might be creating some hazards in the road.
We just can't say it enough. Let's get you over to traffic anchor Jazz Williams watching the roads for us. Hey, Jazz.
Hey guys, good morning. We just got this information out of Pinellas County, out of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, rather. This is a picture of the Skyway behind me, but I do want you to know that access to the barrier islands is going to be granted to anyone with or without a reentry pass, and that is effective immediately. So even though we are urging you to stay home, we don't want you to get out there and start exploring. We do want to make you aware via the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office that access to the barrier islands is definitely going to be accessible to folks with or without a reentry pass. So that is something we want to make you aware of. And again, we are going to continue to keep you updated. I'm going to post this information also on Twitter, where I do urge you to give us a follow at Tampa Bay Traffic. That's where we're kind of pushing you to go. Make sure you get everything you need to know about traveling the roads, but we are still urging you guys to stay home. I know I'm repeating that, but it's just really important right now. First responders need to get out there. It's not enough daylight for you to get out there and brave it yourself and try to figure things out. Too much debris and areas that are just kind of uncharted territory, for lack of a better word, that you don't really know, and some things you just can't see. So we don't want to put our first responders in jeopardy by coming to rescue you, and we don't want anything to happen to you. So we're encouraging you to stay home, but make sure you give us a follow online at Tampa Bay Traffic. Guys, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jazz. I want to show you some brand new video from our Fort Myers station showing the damage that Ian caused there. We've been really anxious to see, what it looks like there. We see trees knocked over, just some palm trees there snapped in half. Business signs, of course, blown apart, lots of debris in the road. That's all expected. But as the sun rises, we'll get to see, get a better picture of the damage there. That area took a beating during Hurricane Ian. So again, this is what we're seeing so far. All of this was expected, with the tree limbs down, the trash blowing around and things like that. Just incredible damage.
Yeah, I'm looking at a lot of videos out of Charlotte County this morning, particularly buildings, Dia, that aren't concrete structures. Seeing a lot of things that are just catastrophic.
I did want to ask Greg, we see the tree limbs down and of course the debris in the road there, but Greg, in that area, did they see winds that were strong enough to have caused any structural damage as we wait to get video, once the sun rises?
Sorry guys, I was on the phone with Heather Lee. She's heading down there. What area are we talking about?
That was Fort Myers, the Fort Myers area.
Close. Now, they were in the northern eye wall, in the southern eye wall there in Fort Myers, and looking at the surge, there could have been, but it really depends on the structure. Now, you would think that most places in Fort Myers Beach and Fort Myers proper downtown are built for hurricane winds. Technically, Fort Myers downtown is in the Caloosahatchee River, but it's basically this giant widening of the Caloosahatchee there. It opens up a huge bay that is than the Gulf of Mexico. You often see dolphins out there. It's kind of like the Hillsborough into the bay here in Tampa. There's a zone where it's basically ocean and freshwater. So yeah, they probably did not see winds that caused damage to most structures. But if you've known Southwest Florida and you've driven through there or have friends and family there, not all structures there are built to that level. You've got a lot of smaller communities, a lot of mobile home communities, and that is the concern, is what happened in those areas. Those areas, the buildings are not lifted off the ground. And in many cases, I feel that, especially in the Cape Coral area, and you get just away from there, seemingly it seems like the Gulf is far away because you have to drive 10 or 15 minutes to get to the ocean. But in fact, when you look at a map, some of those communities were separated from the Gulf by estuaries, areas of mangroves, or just marshland, which floods very quickly, and that would allow the water to flow even faster into those regions. So kind of gives you a false sense of security, thinking I'm not at the beach, but in reality, the water is just to your east or just to your south. You just don't see it, and it takes a while to get to an actual beach. Seeing some incredible photos from another media source on Twitter this morning. Looks like the Sanibel Causeway was washed away. I believe that's the only access point to Sanibel Island. So if anyone has stayed on the island, we may have trouble getting people off the island now with that bridge washed away. That causeway washed away. That is significant damage. I mean, you got to think too, the storms that washed things away, large bridges like this. These structures, they're on the islands. They're on these islands. They're built to withstand the strongest hurricane that FDOT thinks is going to hit that area. I suspect they probably were aiming at building it for Cat 5. That's what hit. I mean, we're kind of splitting straws here, calling Ian a Category 4. It could have been a 5. It's not like we were taking wind measurements everywhere in the storm. We're giving at our best estimates, and it's possible that the same thing will happen with Ian like happened with Michael. Michael made landfall as a Category 4 by the advisories from the Hurricane Center in Mexico Beach. It was their survey following the storm that upgraded it post-landfall to a Cat 5. Maybe when the Weather Service and the Hurricane Center, this is just me guessing here, if they go back there and they find a surge that was more significant than they thought there would be. And that's kind of what upgraded Michael is. The surge was forecast at 9 feet. It was 15 in Mexico Beach. If they go down to Southwest Florida and they find that the surge was actually 20 or 21 feet, well, maybe then this was a Cat 5. Maybe it had strengthened just offshore as we were kind of watching it come ashore. So that is definitely possible. And then things like those bridges, the causeways, they would be susceptible to damage from the surf, and the wind doesn't help either. So we're going to be getting a lot of pictures here. I just spoke to Heather Lee. She is heading down, trying to make her way to Northport, which is the southern extent of our viewing area. So typically, if you have cable, you watch us as far south as Northport, folks in Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, they're in the Fort Myers TV market. But we also understand that you have friends and family, or you may have a second home down in Southwest Florida. We also understand that some of those folks may have connections to Tampa Bay and may be watching us online. The media world has changed. You can now watch ABC Action News from all over the world in different parts of Florida to get your news updates. So we're going to cover that community as well. We're going to see what's down there in Southwest Florida, as many of those folks, of course, are fellow Floridians, and we want to get the word out so we can get the help and recovery that they need. Northeast motion now at 8 miles an hour. We're going to get Ian out of here steadily today. It's not going to be quickly. And I know that's going to be frustrating. Now, the hurricane conditions are gone, but the strong gusty winds, and unfortunately the strong gusty winds that prevent crews from getting up and putting up power lines, they're going to be around for at least the morning hours, I think, through at least a good chunk of the morning, and they will decrease west to east as the storm heads out into the Atlantic Ocean. So here's the view, and I think this is really telling. This is the Hurricane Center estimating the stretch of surface of the Earth's surface that's covered by the winds from Ian. Now, in the core of the storm, there are some strong tropical storm force winds, and those are about 100, 120 miles wide. So in this dark orange, that's where you could see some wind gusts, 60 to 70 miles an hour. We've been showing you the video from Daytona Beach throughout the morning. I know you guys were looking at it just a few minutes ago. If you guys want to pull that up, we can. It's down. Oh, it's down. Well, the camera was flipped over. It's down probably because of what's happening there, the rain band that's moving into Daytona Beach. So that's in that core. But you look at this yellow area, the area that can possibly see tropical storm force wind gusts. I mean, rounding error here, you're basically looking at 550 miles. 550 miles of width here in terms of the area that is covered by tropical storm force winds. That is huge. This is a monster wind machine. And although the winds are no longer as strong, they're still having an impact. They're still having an impact on the ocean here. You're going to get high surf along the East Coast, the Georgia and Carolina coast. And then as that storm moves into Charleston, you're going to get a lot in the way of ocean motion there. I'm going to show you a live picture from north of here in just a minute. Look at the water temperature. Clearwater Beach, 75. It's dropped 13 degrees since Monday. And in its wake, this is what we've got left. We've got tree damage. This is Englewood, so this is north of Northport. Looks pretty bad here. Pretty serious tree damage. I think we're going to see more of that in the Northport area as winds in that region. So Punta Gorda is just south of Northport, 124. Sarasota Bay is 106. So you got to figure Venice 104 farther north away from the eye. So Northport likely had winds somewhere in this area. Maybe 110, 115, so category 3. If you've got reports you want to send me, at Greg DeWeather, Twitter over towards Instagram. I'm getting some of your questions right now. Folks are asking me, are there restaurants that are open? I don't know. There's no database. You can't really trust any kind of online information right now. And I suspect that most businesses are going to be closed this morning. I think you should assume that they're closed. And just think about that. I mean, they've got to get workers in. It's not safe to travel right now. They're not going to be able to just leave their home and go into work. That's not the first thing on their mind. The first thing on their mind is to make sure that they are safe, their community, their family is safe. They may not have power. The businesses themselves may not have power, may not have access to the things they need to operate. So let me take you up into north central Florida, and we'll talk about what's going on. First, let me cover our area. So as far as rainfall, DeSoto, Sarasota, Manatee, Hillsborough, and Pinellas County, you're done. No more. Citrus County, you're done. Now, Hernando and Pasco, the extreme eastern portions of these counties, light rain for the next couple of hours, still windy. It's windy in Lakeland, light rain, and that rain band extends into northern Hardee County and northern Highlands. That's slowly moving out. And then northern Polk County still seeing a little bit of rain. So that's it. There are going to be some gusty winds above 40, maybe 50 miles an hour with that rain band. What's happening up here to our north is this is where the center of Ian is traveling. So the center is right there, just came offshore. So I would say that Ian is back in the Atlantic. It's back over the water. This is the rain that's falling now up in Daytona, and it now is starting to extend up into the first coast, up towards Jacksonville. We do have some live pictures for you from the Jacksonville area. So this looks like Jack's Beaches, heading up there towards Duval County. This is the surf that we're seeing. It looks like maybe a pier structure there. It's hard to tell. Of course, it's very dark. But you're going to see the surf really build. And we're going to watch how much of this water is going to move into Jacksonville. Remember, I believe it was Irma that caused some pretty strong flooding in the Jacksonville area. By the time it got there, it was a tropical storm. It just shows you that these monster storms are moving huge, vast amounts of ocean. And even when the winds die down, the water just keeps moving. It keeps sloshing around, and it could impact places well upstream. Of more concern for me in the Orlando area is this expansive and expanding flood warning that has been issued. And it is now observed. So let me kind of get off screen here and read the information here. Okay, so in the Orlando area, this is going to be Central Orange, Seminole, and South Central Volusia counties. This is a flash flood emergency. So this is basically the tornado warning equivalent of flash flooding. This isn't just a flash flood warning. This is flash flooding is happening now in this area. And there's the report. Law enforcement reported water rescues at State Route 46 at I-4. So people are being rescued near I-4. So this is not off some small road or some small community. This is catastrophic flooding occurring right now near I-4 north of downtown Orlando. 9 to 11 inches of rain have fallen. Additional 2 to 3 inches is possible. This flash flood emergency is for Sanford, Lake Mary, and the Heathrow area. They say it is a particularly dangerous situation, that flash flooding has been observed and it has been reported by law enforcement. So law enforcement in the Sanford, Altamont Springs area right now conducting water rescues at I-4 and State Route 46. That's a major concern. And this is why, if you've got friends and family, if your family is up in Orlando and they are sheltering from the storm there, I'm guessing they're probably in a hotel or some sort of Airbnb. They're safe where they are. You just don't want them to hit the road anytime soon. Orlando is still getting what Tampa got last night. So that nasty weather with the rain and the wind that was moving through between 6 o'clock and midnight, that is Orlando's weather right now. This storm is crawling. Yeah, that was 12 hours ago, but this thing is moving at like 7-8 miles an hour. So it took a while to get up here. And they're still getting it. The rain is still falling. It is still collecting in some of these areas. There is a couple of streams and creeks here. This started as a very small flood emergency, and now it's expanded. Look at the stretch of I-4, basically from DeLand south through Deltona, Sanford, and Altamont Springs. That's a flood emergency. Catastrophic flash flooding is possible. And if it's extending to State Route 46, that is a larger road. This could extend into I-4. There could be portions of I-4 here that are impassable. So if you've got friends or family sheltering in Orlando, I would say wait until the afternoon to make a decision and an assessment of when they should come back. You know, if it's bad up there, just have them stay another night. You know, let's wait for all of this to kind of wind itself down and calm down. The last of the rain bands still impacting us, and everywhere you do see some of these lighter to moderate rain bands, we'll kind of see. Chad Mills has been doing an amazing job out of Lakeland, kind of keeping us updated on the conditions there. And there are a couple of these rain bands still moving through Lakeland, Bartow, and Mulberry up through Kathleen and Gibsonia. There's probably some wind here, 40, 45 miles an hour with some of this rain. It's not very strong, but there is some. This rain, however, is not going to cause additional flooding. Haines City, same deal, same forecast here. There's no difference between the forecast for Haines City and Lakeland. You're so close together. Some light rain now. The rains will slowly die down as we go into the afternoon and evening. The rainfall and the wind reports really have been incredible from some of these places. Looks like we got one out of the Melbourne area. Gusts to 66 miles an hour from the south and east. Farther south, 70 miles per hour at Melbourne Beach. Farther south, now we're getting down to Vero Beach. A measured wind gust of 61 miles per hour this was last night, and then take you down to Fort Pierce. So some of these winds, these are last night, 58 miles an hour. The storm was nowhere close to them, and they were gusting to 60. So a lot of wind here with this storm for sure over the last 24 hours or so. There are still some clouds left over with this, so we're not going to necessarily turn clear. I expect that tomorrow is going to be a much brighter day than today. There is a huge cloud shield associated with the leftovers of Ian that is spinning around the Gulf and over towards central Florida. So the rain leaves first, then the wind slowly subsides. Temperatures will be cooler, lighter winds, and eventually we're going to clear out too. But I think if you're looking for a lot of sunshine, tomorrow's the first day to do it. No more flood watches out there. Those are now gone. And the rain planner, you're going to love to see this. This goes Thursday all the way through next Wednesday night. And the rain chances are down well below 20%. Once we get through a couple of scattered showers, isolated showers this morning, we're done with the rain for the next week. So you're going to get a real long shot to dry out. 65-mile-an-hour storm right now, the 5 a.m. position headed at Melbourne. And because it is now a tropical storm, all of the hurricane warnings for Florida have been discontinued. However, they have simply been replaced with tropical storm warnings. So this is another sign, another element that shows you that we are not totally in the clear. We're just improving. We're making that slow crawl towards better weather. So from Citrus County down into Fort Myers, we are looking at tropical storm warning still. And then from West Palm, really up into South Carolina, the entire I-95 corridor, I can show you here, zoom out this map. Here's what's happening to the north. So for us, we're dealing with Ian exiting. The Carolinas and Georgia are dealing with Ian approaching. And in the pink, now this is interesting, from about Myrtle Beach south to, I'm going to guess, St. Augustine, that's a hurricane watch along the coast. That is because the Hurricane Center is leaving the option, the possibility of Ian regaining some strength over the warm Atlantic here before it makes it back into Charleston or maybe Beaufort or maybe Myrtle Beach, somewhere there along the South Carolina coast. And in the interior, from Columbia south and into Georgia, including the Augusta area, tropical storm watches are up for some tropical storm force winds as the storm will continue up into the Appalachians and be a huge flooding threat there. The only place that has a surge warning left in Sarasota County, there's still an onshore flow there. I've been watching some of the water levels. I have not gotten any reports or any clear indications, at least, of any kind of surges. In fact, this morning, although, and Larissa showed you that really well in a live report earlier, the water levels are starting to return. We did just get past the high tide at 425 in the north part of the bay in Old Hillsborough Bay, and there was no flooding in downtown Tampa. In fact, the water remained below where it should be. So the water is still coming back after getting pulled out last night. I just don't think surge is really a concern right now. So I think the bay, we escaped this. But we also dodged a bullet because just imagine the surge that we saw in Fort Myers. Now take those pictures and transfer them to Tampa Bay had the storm traveled up into Pinellas County. That would have been our storm. That would have been our unexpected strengthening to almost Cat 5. That would have been the surge in the bay. And the problem is with the bay is that you would have flooded everything around the bay with that kind of water. So this was a very dangerous storm that we dodged here once again in the Bay Area. Winds right now, hey, that's looking good. No more 40-mile-an-hour reports around Hillsborough and Pinellas County. Winds well below 40 miles an hour, Citrus to Pasco County. Polk, Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands also staying in that 40-mile-an-hour range. Davenport improving. Polk City, Haines City, Winter Haven. Winds are still gusting in the 40s, so that's still strong. Sustained sometimes above 40 with some higher gusts. But this core of wind will steadily head up towards Orlando, Celebration, and Kissimmee, and then eventually up towards DeLand and make its way up into Volusia County. And then over towards the Sun Coast, winds here are below tropical storm strength. I think folks here will get the first weather okay to get out there and start assessing damage. They've got a lot to look at from Bradenton really down into Englewood. The winds here yesterday in Bradenton, they were gusting up towards 90 miles an hour over at the airport, which is in the southern portions of Manatee County on the border of northern Sarasota County. So we likely have some tree damage there too. The Lakeland area, Haines City, Winter Haven, these are winds for today. This is updated model data. I like the improvement here. Notice keeps the winds strong through about 9 o'clock. And then a huge drop for the afternoon. So that's actually really good news. That's an improvement there. We're going to really drop those winds. Let's see what the Tampa wind gusts are looking at. That's an improvement too. Those wind gusts early on this morning could still gust above 50, but after 8 o'clock, we're going to take the winds down into the 30s. And it's just going to be a much better afternoon with a breeze and some stronger gusts, but no longer the kind of damaging winds that some of you may still see early on. Nature Coast, I don't think you're going to see gusts to 50 this morning, and they're going to really lighten up as we go into the afternoon. You see that here. This model was showing it earlier. The drop very quickly into the afternoon in terms of those gusts, and then the gusts returning to a typical level. That's a normal afternoon, a wind gust to 25 miles an hour. Same deal over towards Polk County. The wind gust pretty light over towards Lake Wales, Winter Haven by tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow, just a really nice day. Look at the breezes out of the north and west, drier air temperatures. Upper 70s and low 80s. That's the forecast for Friday. An absolutely gorgeous day. Unfortunately, for many of you, you're not really going to get to enjoy it as there'll be a lot of cleanup to do. And I think really tomorrow, give yourself a day here. It's been a stressful week. Let all that debris sit out there for one day. Let things calm down. Start that cleanup tomorrow into the weekend. When the sun returns, you get some drier weather. Let some of this drier weather dry off some of the debris. A lot of these branches this morning, they're going to be weighed down by water as well. They're wet. Let them dry out for the next 24 hours. That'll make your job a little bit easier, a little better. Let the ground dry out as well. I bet a lot of your backyards and front yards probably muddy, really soft after all of this heavy rain. We may need a good 24 to 48 hours to dry out and maybe take the weekend to actually do some cleaning up as the winds lighten across the Suncoast. And then Highlands and Hardee County, you're going to be clearing out very quickly. So the planner for today brings us only into the 70s. It's going to stay cooler, a lot of clouds, debris early. So this is the updated planner with new information from Futurecast. Still mostly cloudy skies into the afternoon with some breaks of sun. I think the real sunshine, if you're looking for it, really starts tomorrow. So here's what it looks like on Futurecast. I think Futurecast is overdoing this rain band. You saw the radar. It was just a light green. So you're going to see some lighter rains through 8 o'clock this morning, Haines City. Then that rolls back up towards Orlando and moves out of the way. So afternoon, Orlando's starting to improve. Now, floodwaters will take longer to recede. So there may be still some areas here, especially north of downtown, where we're seeing those flooding reports. That may last a little bit longer. Then we're in the upper 60s and low 70s. Upper 60s, think about that, after midnight. Tampa 69. Early tomorrow morning, likely in the mid-60s in Tampa. The hour bower for Friday brings us back up into the mid-70s, some upper 70s, a few clouds early in the morning, then lots of sunshine for Friday afternoon. And the weekend, my goodness, is forecast just looking better and better. Full sun Saturday and Sunday, drier air, temperatures in the mornings upper 60s to around 70, and then we stay in those 60s next week in the mornings and low to mid 80s into the afternoon. Guys, this is exactly what we need. We need several days, not just of sunshine, but drier air to help dry us out as our lawns will be waterlogged. There's a lot of cleanup to be done as well. I think we're going to get some really good weather to do so.
That's really nice. Also, that cooler weather will certainly be welcome too, because so many people are going to spend a lot of time outdoors cleaning up. So that's going to be really, really nice.
Yeah, another great point.
Yeah,
We'll
keep
be
it from
looking
being so
forward to it.
oppressive.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go back out and take a look at Bayshore Boulevard. Why not? Let's see what's going on. Larissa Scott, she has been so good for us. She's been out there all morning long and late last night. The bay, of course, receded quite a bit. Larissa, I'm sure you still have eyes on it.
That's right, James. So I want to give you the update here from Bayshore. The water has returned and is rising indeed. Now, even just at 3 o'clock this morning, this was all still dry. It started rolling in around 4, and as Greg mentioned, high tide was around 4:30 this morning. And since then, we have seen the water steadily rise. I'd say even in the past hour, the water has risen. Now, it's still lower than it is on a normal day on the bay, but it has risen over the past, hour or so that we've been out here monitoring the water levels for you. But yesterday, and like I said, even still at 3 o'clock this morning, this area was all dry. I mean, the water was sucked out almost all the way to the horizon, and we had people, as we know, walking this area yesterday because there was no water here. And this area, of course, was part of evacuation zone A. It was a mandatory evacuation zone because we were all worried. We know how Bayshore Boulevard can flood and what the bay can do. And we've seen with other tropical systems, water from the bay crashing over onto this street, shutting this road down, houses and businesses boarding up, sandbags in place, just were ready for what could have happened. We were expecting that surge. Of course, we got lucky and were spared. We're of course sorry for our friends to the south of us where that was not the case, but that could have been the case here. And so, seeing the water come back in now, we're just watching that, keeping you updated, and we're going to be out here all morning long just seeing exactly how high that will rise. But once again, the water is now moving back in, and we'll keep an eye on it for you all morning long.
Larissa, when you were there yesterday and there was no water in the bay, explain what was going on out there. People were really curious.
That's right, Dia. We saw just in the short time that we were here, as soon as the water had receded and we saw that reverse surge, we saw dozens of people. It was still raining at that time, mind you. We were starting to really see the weather deteriorate. So we had dozens of people running across the street in the rain, in the wind, to come out here with their families and friends taking photos. We had some police officers who had to start coming up, and stopping people to make sure that they were being safe. But it was really quite a sight to see, and honestly, quite eerie. I know that we saw this with Irma too. So definitely something that people came out here to see yesterday.
If you could estimate, how far back was it before you could see water?
gosh, I don't know. I'm terrible at distances, but I would say it was almost up, to the horizon, like almost as far as you could see. There was just no water there. It was really crazy.
That was a great explanation. That's all I needed.
No, that's all I needed too. It's strange. It's strange to see, and the only other time that many people who live here have seen it was 5 years ago during Hurricane Irma. Yeah, exactly. And Larissa, nice to see clean streets behind you too. No, I mean, I understand there's not a different kind of area, not a lot of debris to come that way, but nice to see there's not a ton of cleanup that has to happen down Bayshore Boulevard.
Yeah, at least not on this side, James, where we see people running and biking and walking, throughout the day. But on the other side of Bayshore, there is some debris. We do see some wind damage. Nothing major that we have seen so far, although, that might change once we get daylight and we're able to see more. But we have seen, down branches, limbs, leaves, some power lines down in the area, things like that. But at this point, we haven't seen anything major, which is, of course, good news.
Yeah, and another interesting sight there, not seeing anybody walking or biking or even skating behind you. Normally, it doesn't matter what time of day you see people out there, but that's a good sign, right?
Well, I will say we've seen, I think, 3 or 4 people pass us this morning. So we've got a few stragglers. But yeah, usually at this time, we've got a ton of people running. So, maybe they're all just trying to stay safe this morning. We've been telling people not to travel. So hopefully they continue that.
That's true. I guess they're trying to take advantage of the cooler weather that's out there. Larissa said she has her jacket on, not because it's raining, but because it's a little cool out there.
She's Florida cold.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Larissa Scott, Bayshore Boulevard, thanks so much. I wouldn't mind getting a run out there with all the bad food I've eaten in the last 30 hours or so.
We're just trying to sustain ourselves at this point.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, we are really hoping to see conditions improve quite a bit over in Davenport.
Exactly.
Just kind of map that up for you, very close to the Disney parks.
Yeah, Greg has been talking about how that whole Polk County area was going to go through it for like the next hour or so, but we're well into it now. The last time we checked in with Kevin Lewis, hopefully things are a whole lot better. Kevin, are you seeing any kind of improvements?
There's an improvement. There's less rain, but there's more wind. It doesn't look like there's less rain, but it is. You could hear it hitting the side of our condo, starting really between 10 and midnight last night. Really hardcore against the walls and the windows. Now the rain has slowed down immensely, but there is a lot of wind. There's still the howling wind, and now it's just the gusts. I mean, now I'm fine, but in probably 10 seconds, I'll have to brace myself because the gusts just come and then they are sustained. So the wind is what's really the problem. Not a lot of debris, though. There aren't a lot of branches, not a lot of damage, structural damage or things that we have noticed. But the wind is really the factor, and that's the story here. Again, the heaviest rain and wind combination was really between midnight to 2 o'clock last night overnight when it was really bad. I mean, the Strom Ian was in full effect. And starting around 2:30, 3 o'clock, you could say the rain started to let up a little bit, and now it's starting to back off, even though it's blowing sideways. The wind is what's really kicking everything up.
Glad to see that the rain has started to lessen up a little bit. There we go again. Every now and then you see that strong gust of wind. Greg was saying for the next couple of hours, so hopefully the conditions are improving.
Right.
It looks like you still have power. You never lost power, right?
Yeah. We did not lose power. Thank goodness. The entire neighborhood, the buildings last night, the ones boarded up, at no point did we see buildings lose power in the neighborhood we are in. So we lucked out there. A couple faulty light bulbs aside. Kissimmee, about 20-25 minutes away, has a lot of flooding. When we venture out, when the sun comes up, when it's a little safer, we'll see if that is anywhere near us. But as far as we can tell, there wasn't any flooding in our area. A lot of vehicles in the parking lots here. I think a lot of people hunkered down. There isn't a lot of traffic. We didn't see a lot of headlights going by our place last night. So I think people stuck and stayed, and they're going to wait until the sun comes up to see if they want to go venture out, or stores or gas stations are opened up again so they can get gas or supplies, because most of the convenience stores and the grocery stores closed last night between 5 and 7 o'clock.
Yeah, that's true. Greg D was talking about, mentioning that people were asking him if he thought restaurants were open. I would imagine, too, that some of the restaurants there are closed and they may or may not have power. So, we'll just have to wait and see when the sun comes up, what kind of damage we're going to see in the whole area.
Yeah, Greg just sending out this message too. The Port of Water Rescues in Orlando, just north of downtown, a flash flood emergency for that area. So as you see the conditions there in Davenport, still not done, and that's not out of the state just yet. So, you know, that's something to keep an eye on for. If we can get some more information on that, we'll pass it along.
We're going to stay in Polk County now. Chad Mills has been stationed there checking out the damage in Lakeland.
Well, here in Lakeland, conditions now calm, at least for now. You can see the tree over there, there's a slight breeze. It's swaying in the wind ever so slightly, a little bit of a sprinkle still falling as well. But take a look at this. This is Lake Mirror behind me, right in downtown Lakeland. This lake actually had small whitecaps in it yesterday. It was so windy out here, but now you can see kind of calm, kind of smooth yet again. Still a little bit of a breeze and a small gust here or there, but things much calmer than they were just a few hours ago. Take a look. That was near the center of downtown Lakeland. Even though things are calm now, officials still warning people to avoid leaving their homes too soon. Danger could be out there. Loose dangling branches or traffic lights, down power lines, flooding in some areas. There are dangerous elements that could be out there. Actually, Hardy County Sheriff's Office put out this tweet not too long ago warning people of just that, asking them to stay inside for the time being, giving emergency officials, first responders time to assess damage and start dealing with that damage. But ultimately, the danger from Ian is not over for Polk County, because even though they are done with the heaviest wind, now there is water to contend with. The Peace River in Bartow and south into Hardy County and even south beyond that still rising and could flood homes in Bartow and those other areas along the river. So officials now focused on that, along with cleanup after Ian passed through, and linemen headed to this area to restore power as well. So even though we are done with one phase of Ian, other phases are starting now. In Lakeland, Chad Mills, ABC Action News.
Yeah, keep an eye on the Peace River, too. You know, Greg had put up a graphic. I tweeted that out. Greg tweeted it out, that it's threatening to go above record levels. So that's
on the Hardy County side, right? Hardy County side, right?
Yeah, so this is
okay.
Springs. And the interesting thing is I just, James, looked at that forecast, that graphic again, and the river is rising faster than what the forecast was calling for. So we actually may be even setting a higher record than the National Weather Service is thinking will happen. We may go over 26 feet. That is well into major flood stage at Zolfo Springs and the Peace River. And all that water, it didn't really fall there. It's coming from Polk County. So it still has to travel through Polk County before it continues down into Hardy County.
Okay. Well, thanks for that update, Greg. Some good news to pass along to you. Energy analysts say that Hurricane Ian should not impact gas prices.
President Biden warned oil and gas companies not to raise prices because of the storm. Oil industry experts say Florida isn't an oil-producing state and accounts for just 6,000 barrels a day. Now, to put that into perspective, overall daily oil production in the U.S. is around 12 million barrels a day.
And experts say that oil companies briefly shut down operations in the Gulf of Mexico before the storm, but already started to return to offshore platforms. Consumer advocates say that Ian could impact the price of grapefruits and oranges, depending on the extent of the damage.
The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office tells us access to the barrier islands is now open with or without a re-entry pass. Previously, you needed a re-entry pass to access the barrier islands, but now that's been lifted. Late Tuesday night, the Sheriff's Office closed all access as the storm approached Florida's west coast. But again, the access to the barrier islands now open again with or without a re-entry pass. I want to go to Jada Williams. She's been set up in Sarasota all throughout the storm. Conditions there have been improving. Folks in that shelter where she's been set up have been anxious to get back home. Jada, what are you seeing there? Are they waking up, preparing to leave today?
Yeah, I'm currently stationed just on the sidewalk outside of Fruitville Elementary School, which is where I've been for the duration of Hurricane Ian. I'm starting to see more people trickling out to their cars, more cars that are driving by. We have a car that just left right here. Outside of the shelter, there are slightly more cars on the road, but still not that many cars on the road. Let me show you some of the damage that we've seen in Sarasota County. This is why that traffic is still pretty light. This fence right here, knocked down, clear from the ground, from the hurricane force. You can see that there's also the tree limbs that came up along with it, and not just a tiny portion, but a very large portion of this fence came down. That's directly across the street from the school that we sheltered at earlier. I told you that the school didn't see a whole lot of damage. That's just a testament to how strongly reinforced that school is and why it is considered a hurricane shelter for people living in Sarasota County. Now, as I drove and didn't go very far at all driving throughout the community, I saw a lot of other things. Saw downed trees in the neighborhood. I saw street lights that were out, stoplights that are out. Also saw downed power lines not far at all from where we were for the storm. So a lot of people, they thought that they could go home, and they probably didn't get as far as we did, realized it's still not that safe out here on the roads. They decided to return to the shelter to wait until emergency officials could be able to come out, prepare or repair things like the downed trees and the power lines and remove that debris. Now, as I mentioned, some of those people said they're going to stay until the sun is up and they feel confident that some work has been done. Other people have woken up this morning and they decided that they want to chance it. We will continue to stay out here. We'll find more damage, but we will stay kind of in this location because it's just not that safe to drive around right now, especially in the dark. You just don't know what dangers are out there on the road.
Jada, the further south you go in Sarasota, the stronger the wind gusts were. Can you give us an approximate idea of where you are right now and what you're seeing?
Yeah, so I am here. It's Sarasota Springs, Fruitville community. It's kind of in the center of Sarasota, so not extremely far from the water, but not very close to the water as well. But that wind, again, so strong. Look at the damage that it did just to this fence right here, and it's directly across the street from that school that is serving as one of the 12 hurricane shelters in this community. Even watching what the wind was doing outside of that school, you could visibly see it, you could hear it. So it was very strong, and of course it has done damage, and as we're waking up, we're starting to see the impacts of that rain and that wind from yesterday.
And Jada, you mentioned that that shelter where you were all throughout the night is Fruitville Elementary. You said that staff there has told you that they will remain open for as long as they're needed, even though, you know, most of the schools that have been used as shelters may be trying to go back, you know, to open the school up on Monday, but that may not be the case there.
Yeah, I mean, as long as there are people in this community, because we're dealing with power outages. That's the really big thing here. And this school currently has power. So a lot of people who did go home, they returned just because they said, well, we can charge our devices here. We have light sources. We can stay here until that power is fixed. And that's just one of the big reasons why they're going to stay open. As long as the need in the community is there, they want to be able to meet that need for the people here in Sarasota County.
All right, Jada, thanks so much. We're going to move on right now. You know, that fence down like that, you know, Greg talking about the type of structures and type of damage that you'd see with the kind of winds we had in the Bay Area. Very curious, again, as the sun comes up and rises as we head further south. We got Heather Lee on her way to, where is she going?
She's going to Northport.
Northport, yeah. She's going to go to Northport, so it'll be interesting to see what she picks up on. I know it's not good to see. I mean, that fence is in pretty rough shape already. Right. Things like that down. But it could have been a lot worse. It
could have been worse, yeah. Sarah Hollenbeck was in Brandon earlier today. She showed us a tree that was down in the road. She moved over to Riverview. Jada made a good point about, you know, not venturing out too much, Sarah, because we're telling people to stay at home and stay off the roads. But, you know, you guys are you know, not going too far, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to show you the conditions and what we're seeing out here. That way you don't need to venture out, so we can do that for you. But I got to show you, this is a sad sight for a lot of people today. Waffle House closed on US 301 in Riverview. Waffle House never closes, right? But this one doesn't have power. We did talk to one of the employees. He was in there and he said, you know, there's really nothing we can do without power. And sadly, this is something a lot of restaurants are going to be dealing with. I know Greg D said he was getting a lot of questions from people asking, well, what restaurants are open? Sadly, a lot of them lost power, which means they probably lost a lot of food inside too. So one of the employees tells us, yeah, that's definitely something they're going to have to assess to see if anything is salvageable or where they go from here. But sadly, lots of restaurants in the area are closed, and we're not seeing a lot of damage, but that's probably considered one of the biggest damages we're going to see in the Tampa Bay area, is that these restaurants have this loss like we saw with Irma.
We've been talking about, you know, it's never a good sign when you see a Waffle House that's closed. Waffle House always stays open.
Unscientific metric.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Sarah, are you seeing, you know, the majority of restaurants that where you are in that small area where you are all businesses pretty much closed?
Oh, every single business. My photographer, Matthew Lathan, his stomach has been growling and we've been trying to find something and there's nothing. There's no place for coffee. So we've seen, like, there's even a car right here that just pulled in and they're like, is it open? I'm so hungry. So there's really no places for people to go to get coffee or food or anything this morning. And if you didn't stock up before the hurricane, you lost power. Maybe you're sick of eating chips at this point, but there's just not a lot of options out there, sadly.
I know. I feel so bad for people who didn't get a chance to stock up. The grocery stores were packed. They were busy. But yeah, a lot of these restaurants may not open right away. Even though Sarah says in that area where she is, they never lost power, there are plenty of places that did lose power. Not sure if they had generators, not sure what's still safe to eat. So, you know, may have to get a little creative.
Yeah, a little bit.
The next couple of days.
Yes.
Yeah, and the employee here, he's like, I'm going to try to reopen as fast as I can. I know a lot of people are hungry in the area, but when you lose power to Waffle House, what do, you know?
That's true.
We do appreciate that enthusiasm. Hey, look, you know, 2.5 million people as we wake up here without power in our state this morning. However, we have seen more skylines lit up than we haven't as we've taken reporters' live shots. So something else to be encouraged by.
That's true. We're also seeing progress, too, being made because power restoration has been happening all across the Bay Area. We were telling you about that. Every time we report, you know, it's you know, fewer numbers of customers that don't have power. So that's certainly good news. And those line crews have been saying they will get out as soon as it's safe to do so. But, you know, we want to give them time to assess the situation and then decide if it's safe to get out.
Our J.J. Burton actually got a chance to talk to a TPD officer out there where he is in Seminole Heights, saying that, you know, their understanding is TECO is going to get started on some restoration in the next couple of hours or so, J.J.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, late this morning. Now we moved down a little bit to a neighborhood, and we're here because we want to show you that the power is on here. You can see the street lights, but for walkers, though, we want to show you this tree here that's in the middle of the road, basically right here. The good thing, it fell this way though and away from these houses. Now, for the people walking, why I say you need to have, if you're going to be out walking, if you can stay home, stay home. But if you're going to be out walking, you got to be careful, because even though you see this tree, you can see the tree, there's also a power line right under there. So if you walk over there, you don't even know. So again, you want to be slow. And if you have to go out, you want to walk slow and have like your phone as a flashlight or a flashlight yourself, and just, you know, walking slow through these areas. We're seeing a lot of several trees like this down. One tree we saw that blocked a whole road, but these are in the neighborhood streets, which some of those neighborhood streets don't have power. And then, like I told you, TPD officers are at the major intersections without power, directing traffic, talking to people, telling them what's going on. And again, TPD saying that they spoke to TECO. They're going to be out late this morning to try to restore power. Now, most of the houses on this street where we are, we're at Shadow and 30th off of Hillsborough. Most of them have power, but these two houses don't, because again, that down power line. And if you're out walking, if you're not being careful and you don't see that, then, you know, it could be bad for you. So you want to make sure that you're being careful out there. James and Dia? Hey,
JJ, I'm trying to see. It looks like that tree limb right behind you that's kind of broken in half. Is, you know, it's hard to see out there in the dark, but every time the photographer moves over a little bit, you can kind of see. Is that what that is?
You can see. We can move a little bit closer. Walk over here. I'm going to wait. Not going to walk over to that power line really, but if we can zoom in there, you can see it split. It did. So it went this way. If it had gone back, you could see if it had gone backwards, it would have hit that house and probably did some real serious damage to that house. It fell this way. And also, if we walk around this way, I want to show you, walk out here, it also missed this truck. So the person who owns this truck over here, John, if we walk this way, you can see if this tree had been a little bit bigger, or if it split even more, it could have hit that truck and did some damage there. So that's the good stuff here. You know, the house is okay. The vehicles are okay. Some of these houses don't have power, but that'll be restored hopefully sometime later today. And again, TPD officers are out monitoring the area.
And JJ, what's the street? Where's the street that you're on right now?
So we're on Shadow and 30th, right off of Hillsborough, right down off of Hillsborough.
Okay, is that the only tree, the only damage that you're seeing so far out there? That's a pretty big tree, though.
Right on this street, this is it. We saw another tree. We're going to drive around some more and see if we can see some more. There's another one that's blocking a whole road. We'll drive back over there and we can show you that next time.
Okay, thanks, JJ. Greg D traveled in this morning from that area. He went home last night. He talked about some of the hazards. You know, he had to go over the river and through the woods to get to the station here. He talked about some of the, roadblocks, roads that were blocked off.
Yeah, and you know what? I live really close by to where JJ was reporting there. And look, older part of Tampa, older homes, older everything.
Yeah, older trees. Those big, beautiful trees.
More susceptible to the types of winds that we had. So that's something else to keep an eye on as the sun comes up. Also just got an update from St. Pete Police. Officers say that the city did not appear to suffer any significant damage from the hurricane. Police say they did get several reports of what we've been seeing all morning and our reporters showing us here, down trees and power lines. Teams will head out in daylight, of course, to clear any main roads that they need to.
And so far, they have confirmed that 79 traffic signals are out in St. Pete. Firefighters responded overnight to a house fire on 7th Avenue Northeast. They say a downed power line sparked a tree fire. Thankfully, nobody was injured in the fire. Police, though, are asking residents to stay off the roads until crews can clear those power lines and also restore power to those traffic lights. Okay, now we want to give you another update on power outages in the area. About an hour ago, we told you that crews have begun to restore power in some counties. The latest updates, these are from just 4 minutes ago, 7 o'clock. Right now, Florida Power and Light is reporting around 225,000 people are still without power in Sarasota. This is about the same as it was an hour ago. But remember, Sarasota was pretty hard hit.
They were very hard hit. You're right. In Pinellas County, still looking at about 125,000 people affected here. That number still around the same as the last update that we brought you at 6 a.m. However, they have restored thousands of homes since our overnight update. So some encouraging news there.
Okay, now you're looking at Pinellas County here. Since our last update at 6 o'clock, about 3,000 homes now have power. 187,000 people, though, are still without power in Pinellas County.
And turning now to Hillsborough County, right where we just saw JJ Tico reporting over 221,000 customers still without power in Hillsborough County.
Now we move to Polk County, which again is still experiencing the wind, the rain from Tropical Storm Ian. That county is still reporting the same number of outages. Tico reporting more than 191,000 customer outages, and that number might even rise as before the storm moves out of that area.
It still could, because they're still being impacted by some effects of it. This is ticking down just a little bit in Pasco County. Our latest update, 41,478 customers without power. That number's gone down just a little bit, about 4,000 since our last update at 6 o'clock or so. We'll continue to provide you updates and let you know as power begins to be restored across our viewing area.
We do want to check in with Greg D now. So many people waking up after a really long night, Greg D, wondering if it's safe to go outside, if it's safe to go back home. So what's the word?
I would stay put right now. It's still a dynamic, fluid situation. We still, as far as the extent of the damage and what's out there, we only know a little bit more compared to what we did before you went to bed last night. So I still think we're at the point where let's hold off. Sunrise, I just tweeted this, is 7:18 in Tampa today. So once the sun rises, crews will start to get out there and assess the situation in better detail, and then we'll finally get to know. And until the winds really die down, we won't be able to get power crews out there, and that means power lines could continue to litter sidewalks. They may be intermingled in between some of the debris. That was a great little point there from a reporter there in Seminole Heights or in Hillsborough Avenue, and that's because you may come up to some debris and think, okay, I'm just going to clean this up, go to reach for it and not realize that entangled in those branches is a live power line. So just hold off. Let's wait a few hours here and see what actually is around. There's the leftovers of Ian. It's a tropical storm right now, but it is heading back over warm waters. Thunderstorms continue to develop north of the center. So there's an outside possibility that Ian could re-strengthen a little bit, maybe even reach Category 1 hurricane strength before it heads back into the Carolinas. And the winds with this thing, this yellow area is the area that may see tropical storm force winds. Now, the back edge of it is starting to approach our coast. So probably in the next hour or so, tropical storm force wind gusts will begin to end west to east across central Florida. But that process may take 3 to 6 hours. So just be patient. The winds will get down there as we go through the day. Don't go to the beaches and get in the water. The winds are going to be strong, but temperatures are going to be much cooler today. And that water temperature, it's now 74 degrees at Clearwater Beach. That is just incredible. Take a look at some live photos out there. We've got a picture from Sanibel Island. So here's the deal here on Sanibel. If these people really are on Sanibel, this is a live shot, then they are stranded, because we have now multiple reports and confirmations that the causeway leading up to Sanibel Island has been washed away. So if anyone had decided to stay on Sanibel, which wasn't completely inundated, this is why I think some people probably went out there to ride out the storms, because not all of the island was inundated by storm surge. It's a little higher island. So now they've got to be rescued off the island, because there's no way to get vehicles onto Sanibel because that causeway was washed away. It was washed away. It was probably built for a Category 5 hurricane, but Ian was a Category 5, basically. That's what hit it. That's what caused the damage. So now there's a whole logistical issue of trying to provide services and, of course, supplies for Sanibel and any folks that are left out there. 140-mile-an-hour wind gust. That was Cape Coral, Punta Gorda 124, Sarasota Bay 106. These are some of the highest in the area that we could find from Ian. Of course, locally, I saw Bradenton gusting into the low 90s, St. Pete into the upper 70s, Tampa into the 60s before the weather sensor went down, and it just went back online this morning. So we lost a good chunk of time there where the airport was not able in Tampa to measure the winds accurately. It was not getting any measurements at all. I suspect Tampa probably did gust into the 70s. We just never really got those reports. So if you do have some reports to pass along to me, right now I want you to stay safe. So let's keep it to weather reports. Do you have a rainfall for me? I just got a report of a rainfall from Winter Haven, 7 to 9 inches of rain, about 9 inches of rain. The winds gusting into the 40s, that kind of thing. Yes, send that along to me. I don't want you to venturing out in your neighborhood right now, taking pictures, getting an idea of what's going on. With the wind still strong, debris still going to be falling from the trees. You've got the power line issue to complicate things as well. So now is not the time to do that just yet. Save that until later in the afternoon. Take a look at the rainfall right now as you take a look at over towards I-4, back over towards Lakeland. Still looking at some areas of light rain. Of course, the focus now is shifting towards Orlando. So, folks, as far as the rainfall, we're basically done, okay? As far as the winds, we'll be done in the next 3 to 6 hours. It's going to get better. This is not going to be an all-day thing again. This afternoon, this evening are looking better. Now the focus is shifting up towards central Florida. If you do have friends and family that are sheltering in Orlando, first of all, they're safe, okay? People here are getting wind, they're getting rain, but there has been so much rain that there is actually an issue happening here. This red box is a flash flood emergency for portions of Orange, Seminole, and Volusia counties. We have confirmed reports now of water rescues near State Road 46 and I-4. That tells me that this is in an urban area. This is a built-up area. Usually when you have a state highway and an interstate crossing together, you've got services, you've got on-ramps, off-ramps. These are built-up roadways, likely elevated. So if there's rescues here, there has been an incredible amount of rain here, and there's either a creek or river or something nearby that is really running out over its banks. The National Weather Service thinks they got somewhere between 7 and 9 inches of rain, and another 2 or 3 inches could fall. So downtown Orlando north is where that flooding is happening. Basically tells you you need to stay put. If you have family there, please don't wake them up and have them hit the road now. Let's wait until the afternoon. If they're in a hotel and checkout is at noon, let's wait until that checkout time if you don't have any other options after that. Keep them at their location for as late as is possible to let Ian move out of here. Remember, Ian was moving so slow over the state. Let's go out to Sanibel again. We got some great live pictures out there, by the way. Take a look at this. Okay, so this is the causeway. So not only did we see the bridge fall, but this is the road that would take you to the bridge. It's gone. Take a look at that. That is the asphalt there, just washed away. So not only could you, even if you could somehow make your way over this, which you would need some sort of Jeep or Humvee really to make your way through this, you couldn't cross onto the island because the actual bridge is washed away, or a section of it is washed away. So this is a huge issue for the folks on Sanibel. And, you know, I keep thinking all of these structures, they are repeated in Tampa Bay. Had the hurricane tracked up into Pinellas County, we could have been looking at these pictures of the Courtney Campbell. I mean, this is where we were the day before the storm. So, you know, our saving grace, the storm shifting south, is unfortunately a disaster for Southwest Florida, where access to Sanibel is now basically has been washed away. That is going to take a long time to replace. Not even talking about the section of the bridge, which is a whole other issue that I suspect FDOT is going to have to work on to try to replace. They've done it before. I remember in Katrina, a portion of I-10 around Pensacola, that collapsed. There were issues there with that, and that took a very long time to replace. So what they're zooming in on now, I wonder if we can see it. It's the start of the bridge. You see maybe in the front, I don't know if you can see in detail, and I'll walk up towards the monitor here, see if I can see it. But it's between the building and the bridge that starts going up. That's the section of the causeway, based on the photos, that has washed away. So I'm guessing the people that got those photos, because there are some photos on social media, I've retweeted them, right up on the causeway. They must have walked over this destroyed section of asphalt of the road to get to that bridge, to find it inaccessible. Hopefully, the amount of people that did decide to ride out the storm on Sanibel is minimal. Maybe none. Maybe they all evacuated and they listened to the orders. Look at that. Look at the other end of the bridge. I mean, it looks like it may still be underwater, or maybe the barrier island that the causeway was on has physically washed away. Actually, I don't even know what we're looking at. Those bridge supports? These are interesting. It's hard to tell from this image of what we're seeing at. We're seeing Sanibel there, but it looks like there might have been either some bridge supports or the actual barrier island that the road surface then continues on. That could have been washed away. And this is a lesson of what a barrier island is. Barrier islands such as Sanibel, Captiva, Siesta Key, St. Pete Beach, Pasagrille, they are not permanent structures in nature. They are meant to move. They are sand barriers for the main coast. The fact that we build on them breaks every rule in nature, and this is what you have to go through to maintain infrastructure on barrier islands. You have to rebuild. There may be portions of this causeway where sand has to be brought back in to create an island to run a causeway on. Case in point here in the Bay Area, before the great hurricane in the 1920s that hit Tarpon Springs, Honeymoon Island and Caladesi were one island. Now they're two, and Caladesi is cut off from Honeymoon, and it is broken up by something called Hurricane Pass. That Hurricane Pass, that break in between those two barrier islands, was created by that hurricane in the 1920s, and that is a natural motion of the sand. Those barrier islands over time are supposed to shift north and south along the coast, providing a natural barrier from waves and storms for areas farther inland. All this beach development that we have put in along the coast, we really have to try to fight nature in these storms to try to rebuild it and maintain it. And that's going to be a lot of work there in Southwest Florida. Just incredible live images there as the sun comes up. And I'm sure that is just the beginning of what we'll see there from Southwest Florida. So if you do have folks back to the Orlando area, have them stay there through at least as late as they possibly can today. That's what I'm going to tell you. I know if you're facing a checkout time at a hotel, there's nothing you can do. You got to get them out of there. I understand that. But try to stretch that as late as they can. Maybe if there's some businesses that open up at noon, have them stay in Orlando, grab lunch, and then come in after that. The later, I think, the better here is basically the advice There's the center of Ian. That actually might be just north of 39A. That's the launch pad on Merritt Island, the famous launch pad that launched the Apollo missions up to the moon. Looking better now. I'm getting fewer reports of strong winds. I think this latest one may be one that just popped up not long ago. This 3:50 this morning. A buoy there reported a sustained wind of 37 knots, which in miles per hour is tropical storm strength, and a gust into the mid-50s. So even where there is no rain, Ian near the center still producing some stronger winds. And in these flood reports here, there's actually 3 of them in Orlando. So you see there the outlet mall there. I showed you that earlier. There's some flooding near Orange Blossom Trail and then over towards Meadow Woods. Buenaventura Lakes area of Orlando flooded. Water is entering some homes here. That's the report from the Weather Service. We also had some reports, looks like that in Sarasota County. This is last night. Roads flooded as Ian was coming ashore. That's what you would expect. There was a bit of a surge there and likely some strong winds as well. Here's the latest view of Ian moving away as a tropical storm over Merritt Island. We've got I-4 there and over towards Lake Osceola and Orange counties. Very heavy rainfall right now heading up into Volusia County. Lighter rains around Polk County, DeSoto, and Highlands. These are not going to be an issue. They're not going to exacerbate the flooding that's already happening along the Peace River. Are just not going to make it any easier. Jazz, I see you standing at the wall there. You got a report for me this morning?
Microphone has died. Oh no, there we are. I do have a report for you. I just want to give you some updates on some things that we are seeing by way of some of the sheriff county offices. One in Pinellas County, where we're seeing the Barrier Island access. I know Dia also mentioned it earlier, but yeah, it's been restored with or without entry pass. So that's some good news. And also we are seeing just recently, we do have access now to Clearwater Beach. That's been restored with no restrictions. But I just really want to point out that even though we're seeing some of these restrictions start to lift, it's still not wise to get out there. Normally when I make this map, I normally take away some of these pop-ups, like the incident alerts, the crash alerts. I normally take them away and just insert them manually, but in this case I left them all up because I just want you to see how many there are. So we're seeing them all over the map. I mean, really, we are Pinellas County into Tampa Bay. I mean, really, we're just seeing a lot of debris and we're still trying to assess some of that damage. So it's just not wise to go anywhere. So I'm only saying that because even though we're starting to see some of the restrictions lift in some places, it doesn't mean it's wise to make a move yet. I know Greg has been mentioning all morning long that you do want to stay put, especially if you're in Orlando and you're thinking about coming back. Just hold tight. Not the time really to start moving. It's still not even that bright out right now. So first responders and emergency personnel, they're out there trying to assess the damage, trying to clear some of those downed power lines, get up some of that debris off the roads. So it's not safe and it's really not smart. Now, the Sunshine Skyway remains closed right now, so I want to keep eyes on that. Obviously, that's been closed since yesterday, and our other bridges are open. And I did look at the FDOT cameras, which right now I'm not able to pull up. It looks like they've frozen for just a small period of time. But when I did look last, people were on the Howard Franklin. It looked like they were trying to ignore us and make some moves. But again, we don't advise that you leave right now. Right now, it's important to limit all non-essential travel. It's also important, if you do have to go out, make sure you take it really, really slow. And lastly, avoid those large puddles. You see a large puddle? Don't try to drive through it. Don't try to swim through it. Make a cute TikTok. Not worth your safety, and definitely not worth the safety of the first responders who would have to try to get to you. We also encourage you to give us a follow on Twitter at Tampa Bay Traffic. That's where we're going to be posting everything that you need to know by way of incidents, closures, crashes, and just all of the things that you need to know about navigating the roads. But again, it is still early, so if you can, stay off of them. Guys?
Thank you so much, Jazz. I'm looking at some pictures now from Sanibel Island. That road that Greg was talking about that he showed you, that's McGregor Road. That's the road that leads to Sanibel to the on the causeway. Just ripped up like an accordion. Yeah. I'm also looking at pictures of a spiral staircase that was blown into a yard. Looks like it was blown right next to a pickup truck. And the position of the pickup truck doesn't look like it was parked. It looks like it might have also been picked up and dropped in that area. Just incredible damage. Looking in the downtown area, just, you know, the flooding and the damage there is just incredible. And the scenes that are being painted there, you know, some spots have power, while the rest of the street is just completely dark. Just a very eerie scene. And we'll get more images and of the damage there, of course, at first light. But
that's the Fort Myers area too.
Just incredible.
My family has a home in Punta Gorda, and I was able to talk to some neighbors down there who describe it as a war zone. And we're just waiting for some more shots down there when we have some more light and crews get down there to see what exactly we are dealing with. But probably prepping ourselves for catastrophic damage.
Absolutely,
at this point.
absolutely. Of course, our hearts go out to everybody in that area whose homes sustained damage. And again, we have not heard any reports of injuries or deaths. We are praying that it stays that way. We're hoping that that's a good sign. We know that it's still dark. Crews have not been able to get out and assess the situation yet, but we are just praying that stays that way.
That's the situation down there. The situation up here around Tampa Bay, much different, much better. Larissa Scott, she has been on Bayshore Boulevard for us all morning long. Just kind of spending time watching the water come back in, Larissa.
That's right, James. And I want to give you your first daylight look of the bay so you can actually see now what we've been dealing with in terms of the water returning. You can see it has come back. This, of course, was sucked out yesterday as the bay experienced that reverse surge caused by Hurricane Michael. All of this, all the way out to the horizon almost, was dry. All the water was gone. It has now started coming back in. It was dry even as of 3 o'clock this morning. Started coming in around 4. We had high tide around 4:30, and ever since then we've had the water slowly come back. It has been slowly rising, and I want to give you just an idea of how high the water level is right now. It's really low still. If you look over there along the seawall, you can see that brown line is where the bay water usually is. Clearly, we are still very much below that right now, which is good news because this was part of evacuation zone A. It was a mandatory evacuation zone, so people were told to get out because we were expecting to see some severe surge in this area. Great news that we didn't, because it could have been much worse. But again, right now what we're seeing is the bay water is starting to come back in, but it's still very low.
Scott for us, reporting for us at Bayshore Boulevard this morning. Nice to see that for sure, Larissa. Dia, you have some breaking news here.
Yes, we do. Sadly, I just talked about not getting any reports of injuries or deaths, and just as I said that, we did get one confirmation of a death. A 72-year-old man in Deltona died because of this storm. We don't have any other specifics, but at this point, one death, 72-year-old man in Deltona. Of course, our thoughts are with his family and all those who knew him. Okay, we do want to go now to Kevin Lewis in Davenport. We've been watching that whole Polk County area very closely. That was kind of the last area, in our viewing area that was still experiencing the storm, and they were getting some pretty strong gusty winds and rain. But that was about, 30 minutes ago. Greg D said it wouldn't last very long, but let's see if it's still happening out there.
Be wind if anything's left. Guys?
Hey, James and Dia, Kyle Berger here live in Davenport. We didn't have much to show you for the last 5 hours from 2 to 7. It was pitch black. All we had was wind and rain, but now we have something to show you now that it's daylight. You can see here the fence has been blown off at this condo in this apartment complex all the way down. You can see the fence has just been ripped apart all the way down. It's as far as you can see. So expect more of this. This is heavy winds overnight and into the morning. So once we venture out of this condo complex, we'll probably see much more of this. But right now, we don't have the gust anymore. We don't have the strong pelting rain. It's just we can go on and assess all the damage now at this point here in Davenport.
All right, Kyle Berger live with us in Davenport. There was some of that damage there. Kyle, it looks like that is stretching about as far as you can see there. As you guys made your way to that location, anything else that you want to point out that you saw? Any other types of debris in roadways? Any other kind of damage that you were able to see?
This is really as much as we've gotten so far. There's one street sign that's kind of, bending diagonally at this point, but the major thing that we've seen so far, we're about to hop in the car and drive toward Kissimmee to see what we see, see if we can see some trees down, and check out, see if Disney World has any damage around that area as well on Disney Springs. So we're about to head in the car now, we'll bring another report later on today.
And Kyle, I know that wind is out there. It's pretty strong, and we can barely hear you, but I did want to ask you, though, has the rain for the most part stopped out there? It almost knocked you over. Has the rain for the most part stopped?
Yeah, it's just
barely a drizzle right now, and we have an occasional gust of wind, so that's about as far as the weather. Now we just got to see all the damage.
All right, well, you stay safe. We'll check in with you a little bit later on, and hopefully the next time we check in with Kyle, the conditions will have improved a whole lot. I do want to tell you that President Biden has approved Florida's disaster declaration. Of course, that, provides money to help with Florida's, hurricane relief, emergency assistance money to help with Florida's hurricane relief.
That is very good to hear. And also, we want to pass this along for all Polk County residents watching us this morning. If you live in Polk County and have questions about hurricane debris, Polk County officials are asking residents to call the following number. It is 800-375-0844. That is the only number that can provide answers for any debris-related questions. We just put that up on the bottom of the screen there. And also, remember, Polk County's Waste and Recycling Division does not collect to get rid of any hurricane debris. Make sure to separate your usual residential garbage, recycling, yard, and bulk waste from any hurricane debris. As always, you can get updates at polkcounty.net there, Polk County's social media pages, or from us.
We want to go back to those Sanibel Island pictures that we showed you earlier. Just incredible damage out there. This is McGregor Road. This is the road that leads up to the causeway, just ripped up like an accordion there. That was pavement that was ripped up from those strong winds from Hurricane Ian blowing through. You can see, the palm trees there gone. You think about the damage that it did to the road, and then you can only imagine, damage on the island itself. But, I did read a little while ago about two guys trying to go and rescue their friend on the island. Of course, they were not able to because there was no road for them to travel on. So we can only hope that their friend is okay.
Connection to the mainland is severed there, is what you're seeing. Also, some reports of a historic lighthouse on Sanibel Island that's gone. Not seeing that this morning either.
There's also a section of the causeway that's gone as well.
We're
waiting to see video of that, but we've seen some incredible pictures on Twitter of that. Just the whole section, whole chunk of it just gone.
Just gone. What was the wording you used? Like an accordion. The road folded up like an accordion.
It did. I saw pictures of a it's like a spiral staircase that had just been blown into some bushes next to a truck that looks like it had also been moved, maybe by the wind as well. But when you think about how long it's going to take to repair that road, we're not talking weeks. We're talking months, maybe even a year or so.
Weeks, possibly
maybe
months.
A long time.
All right, we're switching things up here. Take a live look. What were we looking at there, guys?
That's okay.
Okay, that's fine. We do have an update here from Lee County. This should be interesting here, Dia.
Yeah, we are starting to see some of the damage that Ian caused in southwest Florida. Several water rescues happened in Lee County as that storm search there took place.
Yeah, that's we've got reporter Alexandra Ronhell with our Fort Myers station with this report. Let's take a look.
Right now we're on Edwards Drive right behind the Luminary Hotel, and I want you to take a look at the current situation with the surge in this area. You can see that the water is past my ankles as I'm walking through here. We actually came across a search and rescue team who tells us they rode out the storm to help rescue people caught in Ian's destruction.
We had one injury, a laceration. A guy got hit in the head with a palm.
Curtis Drafton says so far they've rescued 9 people. He showed us a video of one rescue where a man was trapped inside his car.
287, I do have eyes on vehicle.
Rescue after rescue.
We had a couple who tried to take a blow-up raft and get out of the neighborhood.
But the strong winds,
it started blowing them out to sea.
Grafton is a veteran from North Carolina.
We do see one boat out here that actually needs a POA.
He says he's with 3 other volunteer veterans who came down to Southwest Florida to help with search and rescue efforts.
But we're finding a lot of people did not evacuate.
And a lot of people caught in dangerous circumstances. And Drafton says the safest thing you can do is hunkering down and staying put because you don't want to put yourself in even more danger. In downtown Fort Myers, Alexandra Rangel, Fox 4.
Thank you, Alexandra. We are getting more video from Ian as the storm makes its way across Florida. Take a look at this video right here. We're looking at this with you as well. This is our first time seeing this. This is video of a house fire after Hurricane Ian's eye wall, passed over this area. Not sure exactly where this is. Does anybody know where this is? I don't have a locator on this. But anyway, you can see this, this is in Lee County. Greg and I were just talking about Lee County and all the damage there. Just incredible. You can even see the roads there flooded. Emergency crews cannot get there. We showed you earlier in Naples, fire rescue trying to, okay, that's a canal. So fire rescue trying to use jet skis to get through the streets. So we understand that that is a canal. That's the back of the house there. Right. But just an incredible fire. You see people in the yard as well.
Yeah, and Dia, that canal, that's Gulf water. So as the surge brought in water and brought the Gulf levels higher, those canals did the exact same thing.
But again, fire rescue crews have been assessing damage, assessing emergencies. They may not be able to get there right away. They may not, you don't know what's in the road. You don't know what kind of debris they're encountering. Just a very dangerous situation. This is also damage from Fort Myers as well.
Yeah, it is. And if you take a look, there's pieces of what looks like, the pieces of that building there, tree limbs, broken wooden poles, more objects in this shot to show you the pure strength of Ian as it passed through that area of Fort Myers. These are the kind of structural damages here that we anticipated with the extreme wind warnings that were issued prior to this storm making landfall here, Dia. This is really unfortunate to see, but you can only imagine there's so much more of this all throughout Fort Myers. And again, I'm just trying to eye this up and see if there's anything else. I mean, these are, you got some broken wood there. It looks like that, maybe some concrete as well. Serious, very serious.
Yeah, it is. That looks like it was a business district. Greg D., we are very nervous about what we're going to see at first light because those are strong winds, could do structural damage, as we've already seen.
Dia, I'm terrified about the water damage that we're going to find. The way this is looking, you think where Michael hit in Mexico Beach, the surge was focused on a very small area, a small community. That was absolutely devastating. I don't want to take away from that. That Mexico Beach was devastated. You think about Charlie hitting a very small area, very little surge. Ian had the power of water that Katrina did. It had that kind of power. It had that kind of size, and it hit a larger populated area. This may be one of the biggest surge events and damage from surge in Florida that we've had in recent memory. You may have to go back. You think about Andrew as it hit South Florida. That was a wind damage event. If you remember the photos, the aerial pictures of Homestead, that one really set the bar for wind damage and building codes in Florida from the wind. The surge on the east coast of Florida is not as big of an issue because of the continental shelf, but the Gulf Coast of Florida is extremely vulnerable. And what happened down there, I really still believe 90% of the devastation here that we're going to see is going to be water-based. I feel like we've seen only about 10% of the actual damage. The pictures that we're getting are from people that were lucky enough to have power earlier in the storm. We're going to hear some incredible stories and probably see some incredible images in an area there across Lee and Charlotte County and possibly Sarasota County too, southern Sarasota County. That is the southern area that we're looking at. Just to give you an idea of Ian's power to move water. So the tropical storm force winds with this storm, they extend from just off Pinellas County to out into the Gulf of Mexico. They're about 550 miles wide. 550 miles of ocean surface is impacted by the winds around Ian. This wind here is coming in out of the south. And I just checked tide gauges in South Carolina. And in South Carolina, the tide is already running 1 foot to half a foot above normal. On the Georgia coast, the tide is already over a foot above normal. And that storm is more than 200 miles south of Charleston. And yeah, the winds are just tropical storm strength, but the way surge works, it's an equation of two things. Number one, it is the intensity of the storm. But the most important factor in how much of water is moved is not as much the intensity, that is important, it's the breadth, the width, how vast of an area the wind is impacting. The wider the area impacted by the wind, the more water the storm is able to gather and move. And Ian is a water moving machine. This is a monster when it comes to moving water. It's still impacting tide levels on the west coast of Florida. It's already impacting tide levels in South Carolina. Multiple states, hundreds of miles impacted by what is now just a moderate tropical storm. I mean, you guys know, we're Floridians. If this thing was headed our way with 60-mile-an-hour winds, most folks wouldn't even bat an eyelash to it. But Ian is different. This is a different storm. And we talked about this all day yesterday as it was strengthening. This thing, there's just something to it that is a little bit different. 74-degree water temperature at Clearwater Beach. That is down 14 degrees in 48 hours. It's going to be much cooler the next several days and much more comfortable, too. The only image I've seen, had somebody send this to me from Englewood. If you have photos from Northport, Englewood, Venice, if you had friends and family that sent you photos or videos from Sarasota, Bradenton, Anna Maria, Longboat Key, if you've got folks that stayed out there, forward them to me. I'd love to see what you're seeing. At Greg D. Weather on Twitter and Instagram is ready to reach out to me. 140, that is the max gust that we saw over towards Cape Coral yesterday. So at Greg D. Weather, Twitter and Instagram, reach out to me this morning. Email me, greg.de@wfts.com. Trying to gather as much reports, images, videos as I can. I'll share them with you if I get them. The problem is, as you guys see, it's just very difficult to get information out of that area. Clearwater, St. Pete, Sarasota, dry right now. The rain is over in Wesley Chapel. It's over in Brooksville, Crystal River, Wauchula, Arcadia. Still some light sprinkles and showers around Avon Park and Sylvan Shores, but you're fine. Sarasota, Northport, Englewood, Venice, Sarasota County, friends, you're done with the rainfall as well. You're also going to be the first to see the winds drop off. I know that's great news. Still not so good across the Orlando area, unfortunately. Issues up here continue with what is developing to be a flood emergency. The Orange and Volusia County area there over towards Seminole County. Law enforcement here, they're doing water rescues near I-4 at State Road 46. There are some issues with flooding. They're categorizing this based on the rain gauges that they're seeing as potentially catastrophic. And this is a well-developed area. If you've been to the Orlando area, who hasn't here in Central Florida, you know, Altamont Springs, this is a very popular area to stay. This is a growing area of the Orlando area, a suburb here of the Orlando Metro, Sanford. These are all places where that are well built up. So this flood emergency up to DeLand almost, Deltona area, this is going to be impactful. We're getting some video that here folks are experiencing flooding. And I know I repeat myself when I say do not drive into flooded roadways. I literally just saw a video from one of the Orlando stations where a woman decided to drive into floodwaters, and the reporter luckily was able to go and get her out of the car. But she didn't need to do that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to put two lives in danger when you can just go around. She assumed that the waters weren't very deep. Maybe she's been through that area 100 times, and she was sure there's just 6 inches of water there. It turns out it was about 3.5 feet, and the car didn't make it, and she couldn't get out of the car. So this is what I'm saying, especially when it's dark outside early on. The water, it kind of changes the way you view the road surface. It makes it very hard to judge how deep it is. It's dark, it's murky. Please don't take that risk. It is just too dangerous, and we certainly don't want to maybe pull emergency officials away from actual emergencies to rescue people that could have made the choice of staying safe and going around that flooding. A 5 or 10 minute delay is not worth risking your life over. And that rain here continues. So if you've got friends and family in the Orlando area, please tell them to stay put just for a few more hours. Until checkout time, until early afternoon. It's still windy here. The winds are consistently gusting in this rain band above 60 miles an hour. And the backside of this rain band, if you see the motion here, it kind of extends into northern Polk County. Kevin and Kyle there in Davenport probably just got the worst of it. It's moving out now and heading over towards Champions Gate and Kissimmee and the Celebration area. But it continues to feed across Lake County. So the village is getting some heavy rain. Winds are gusty here. It's not a damaging wind. We're not going to see structural damage out of this, but could see some more tree branches down. And it's just not very nice to be doing traveling. I-4 in its own is not a nice highway to drive on most days. With weather like this, it's not any easier. So let them stay out there. They're in a safe place. Orlando is fine. It's when you try to get out on the road, like the lady did in the flooded roadways, that you start to have issues. If you stay put and just let this thing move by, the waters recede, it's going to be fine. Lots of wind reports. Everywhere you see one of these red symbols, that's a wind of 58 miles an hour or more. And you see from Orlando scattered down the East Coast, they're really all over the place. We're also getting those reports down across the northern Florida coast. This is really spreading up here. So now we're getting the winds. Let's pull up some of these back over towards Jacksonville, Duval County. The Mayport Naval Station, wind gusts to 58 miles per hour reported there. Take you into, this is interior Duval County, Orange Park, 52 mile an hour there. Jacksonville Naval Observatory there, Peak Station, they reported that wind at 52 miles an hour. Down towards Jack's Beaches, over towards St. Augustine, wind reported 56 miles an hour. And this is what is causing the Atlantic here to actually run above normal. Marine land, 55 mile an hour report relayed by EMA Flagler County. I checked the tide gauge down to Titusville. The tide actually got high enough where there could have been about 30 minutes of some minor flooding there in some of the roadways that run along the coast. Nothing serious, very minor, probably something they're used to in bigger storms. But because this water here is coming in out of the east, the wind is coming in out of the east, it's pushing the Atlantic into the beaches. So they're seeing tides run above normal, dangerous water to get into, the surface high. Definitely don't want to encourage folks to head out to the coast. That is not a good idea. And this rain band is moving away because as Ian pulls away, we're going to see the rain move away with it as well. The flood watches for our area are done. The flood threat or additional flood threat is done as well. And in fact, so is the rainfall. Really through the day today, right into next week and the weekend, we're looking fine. Rain chances below 10%, as you'll see in the 7-day forecast. The temperature is pleasant too. So the official track for Ian does take it off the coast. It's going to head up over Cape Canaveral. And because it's moving away, our hurricane warnings have also gone away as well. It's now a tropical storm, but we still have tropical storm warnings for the area. And these are going to continue for the next several hours. So in Hillsborough County, this is... Well, they've got it listed until Sunday. That is not correct. These warnings, these are not until Sunday. These are going to be probably through the afternoon. I suspect the computer there is probably pulling in some bad data. The storm will be out of here by later on tonight, completely offshore, and the winds will go away with it as well. The motion on this then continues off the East Florida coast, should pass to the east of Jacksonville, to the east of St. Augustine. I think the heaviest of the rain is going to stay south and east of Jacksonville as well. And then we're going to watch the Carolinas. South Carolina up into North Carolina, and eventually maybe western North Carolina there, the Asheville area, western Virginia, Kentucky, South Carolina, and eastern Tennessee. And beautiful area. Many of you probably go up here in the winter and fall months to see the fall colors, to maybe see some snow once in a while. Up towards eastern Tennessee with the higher elevations there, some of the Appalachians reaching up 5,000 to 6,000 feet. Well, as beautiful those mountains are, they tend to channel water into valleys. And if you get a tropical system kind of raining itself out there, even 24 hours of heavy rain could cause some flash flooding. So they'll be watching for that as well. Saw the Weather Service. We're in a constant chat with them on our computer. They have dropped the surge warnings for the Nature Coast, Tampa Bay, Pinellas County, and Manatee County because they no longer feel a surge is possible based on the winds and some of the gauges. Now, unfortunately, they elected to keep the surge warning for Sarasota County, and they gave two reasons. Number one, the winds are still onshore, and the coastline here in some locations is complex, and they feel like it's a little too early to call that an above normal sea level rise is not going to happen. The other thing they're watching is, remember, we had some heavy rainfall here in the interior, and some of these rivers are draining into the coast. So as the river is dumping water into the ocean, it's rising the water level around it as well. So for those two reasons, they have maintained those surge watches and those warnings. About to toss it back to you guys back at the desk, but before I do want to leave you with some happy and some sunny news, and that is fall is here. Hurricane Ian will completely change the weather pattern across Florida. It has pushed summer out and brought in fall. It's just amazing how this can happen. We're going to go from low 90s to suddenly not seeing a 90-degree day in the near future, and our lows from being in the upper 70s to near 80 to being in the 60s to near 70. And that is a welcome change, and one that we could definitely use right through the weekend. Guys?
Absolutely, Greg D, especially with so many people. 2.5 million people in Florida are without power right now. So to be able to have that cooler weather is, I'm sure everybody's certainly grateful for that. That's just a blessing. But help is on the way right now, Lauren.
Yeah, it's super important. And we know that the cleanup is going to be days, if not weeks, for some parts of Florida. So having that cooler weather, knowing that help is on the way, I hope you can take some relief in that.
Yes, absolutely. We want to go to Stassi Almos now. She is at Tropicana Field where the cavalry has been established. They're stationed out there right now. Utility crews are preparing to head out to try to restore electricity. Stassi, every single hurricane, that comes our way, when we see all of those utility crews and those trucks out there, it just gives you a little bit of hope.
Oh my goodness, that is the truth. As soon as we drove into Tropicana Field just about 20 minutes ago, I kind of got the goosebumps and the stomach feeling of, wow, these are our first responders heading out to save the day, especially here in St. Pete. I'm going to show you, this is Duke Energy's setup here of linemen from across the country. I mean, look down that line, and it is just row after row, 700 crews from several states. I just spoke with a crew from Indiana. They told me 700 of their linemen have come down here. They started driving on Monday. They stayed in Georgia. They got down here. They're staying at a resort hotel about 40 minutes north, and they showed up here early, ready to work. As you can see, some of these men are already in their trucks, men and women. I apologize. I've really seen mostly guys out here, but even when we drove up, we saw them kind of rushing to get in their cars, and we were like, whoa, they're heading out. But I did also speak to a crew right here from Indiana. As you can see, they're testing their bucket truck right now. We'll give you a look of that going up. They told me that, they're here, they're ready, they're waiting for their assignment. This particular crew will be heading to Clearwater, and they wanted to assure me that they will have power up fast. So that's what we want people to know here in St. Pete. We were driving down 275 from Tampa. We saw a lot of neighborhoods without power, kind of in the dark. We stopped at some of the stoplights here in downtown St. Pete on Central without power. Some of the stores and businesses, homes without power. These crews, they're waiting for the go-ahead to get out. You can see they're already in their outfits. They've got their hats on. They're ready to go, waiting for their assignments. Now, as you mentioned, several hundreds of thousands of people without power here in Florida, but here in St. Pete, most of these crews will be responding locally first. That's what I'm told by some of the crews here. And according to on where exactly these crews will be going, but just tell me, if you got that same stomach feeling that I got when you saw all of these linemen here at Trop ready to go out and put power back on.
Absolutely, Stassi. Every time you see that site, for every single hurricane that hits the state of Florida, when you see all those trucks lined up in one position, you know that help is coming. I called it, I said, there's a cavalry. The cavalry's on the way.
Absolutely.
They will be working for a while, Lauren.
Yeah, and I mean, they work 18-hour days. It's not like they're out there for a few hours just working on one pole. The men and women, the work that they put in is just incredible. And I mean, we saw them staged earlier before the storm as well. So they were all really ready. And Governor DeSantis had said they were coming from so many different states. So it's really incredible to see the whole country coming to help the state of Florida.
And Stassi, you said that they're just waiting at this point to get their assignments, but most of those crews that are stationed at Tropicana Field, I think I heard you say that they're going to focus locally first. Have they said which areas are the hardest hit and which areas they plan to tackle first?
That is exactly what I asked them, and basically the crew that I spoke to, they said, we're heading to Clearwater and we're going to get them back up as soon as possible. I asked them, have they heard anything about down south? Will they be heading down there? Some of those images out of Fort Myers and Naples. And they said, no, all they've heard is what they've seen on our station on the news. And so they're ready to go when that call comes. But they said, as of right now, they're not even sure if crews would be able to get in.
Yeah, we're still waiting for word. Authorities are still assessing the damage and the situation in all those different counties that were hit by the storm.
Yeah, Stassi, thank you so much. And unfortunately, even Greg was saying earlier, it's at the point where we don't know how much damage has really happened. So it's hard to get in those power crews to fix something that they don't really know yet.
Right.
And it's also so important that as these power crews go out, you stay inside so those power crews can do their work. And right now the crews are really getting out in neighborhoods to survey that damage.
And eventually, once things calm down a little bit, they will be in the restaurants and they'll be in the shopping centers, and you'll be able to thank them. We've seen that over and over again. People so grateful that they've come and they've helped. So you'll have an opportunity to thank them. We've been checking in with JJ Burton. He's been in Seminole Heights. He was showing us some damage that he saw, some trees that were down. We want to check back in with him and see. He's been driving around, staying pretty close in Seminole Heights, but we want to see what other kind of damage he's seeing out there. JJ, how's it looking?
Hey, but real quick, we stopped at Middleton High School. That's one of the shelters. About 550 people stay there. Talked to two ladies who were leaving, and they wanted to say to Greg that you were a blessing yesterday. You were a lot of help, and they're glad that they watched you yesterday. And they're on their way home, and they're going to check out the houses. Most of the damage that they're going to probably run into, though, are trees like this that are down over the road. We're on East Chelsea and North 21st. You can see this tree right here is blocking the road. Producer Sam was worried that I might try to jump over it. I'm going to tell you one thing. God did not bless me with the talent of jumping or running, so no, I will definitely not jump over the tree. But you come down here and you can see the roots of it right here. Goes all the way out, right out this way, and then down here and right across this road. Thankfully, that house and the porch over there is fine and safe. It didn't hit that house, but this is the kind of damage we're seeing. We were over closer to Hillsborough earlier, Hillsborough Ave, and we saw a tree and some power lines down there. Still some power outages out that way, and still Tampa police officers, you probably saw that unit there driving around, checking out the area, and they're also at some of those major intersections that are without power, directing traffic and telling people where to go. A lot of places are closed, and they're hopefully going to be able to get power open back up sometime early this morning or this afternoon.
All right, thank you so much, JJ. We'll check back in with him throughout the morning to find out, what he's seeing in the area.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more trees like that in the Tampa area anyway. So we told you there is now a boil water notice in effect for the city of Northport. We wanted to find out more information. So joining us now live on the phone is our reporter Heather Lee. She is in Northport. Heather, what are you seeing as you were driving to Northport? Give us some more information on that.
Hey, good morning, guys. It is, you know what, I can hear myself, so I'm going to talk very slowly because it's hard for me to talk through this. But we are seeing a lot of flooding in this area. We can't even get to Northport. Basically, right now, we traveled southbound on 75. Sorry, there was an emergency vehicle trying to get by us. We were traveling south on I-75. We exited for the exit to get to Northport. So that would be River Road, which is also 777. That takes you to US 41, and then you would take US 41 into Northport. We could only get about halfway down River Road before we had to turn around because the water is flooding the road so badly. We did see a Jeep attempt to go through. I think he made it. We didn't see him after a while, so it looks like maybe he was able to get through. But there are a few neighborhoods along this road, and people are trapped in their neighborhoods because they can't get through the flooding as well. So we see some folks that are sitting at the entrances to their neighborhoods, kind of looking out, seeing what's going on. I can tell you the conditions out here are pretty bad. We saw a whole fence line totally demolished. Again, we can't get into the neighborhoods to actually see the houses and how much damage they sustained. There are trees snapped in half here. There are palm trees that are literally bent sideways, bent over. Again, the flooded water out here it seems to be receding. I don't know if that means because low tide is going down or we're into a falling tide. I'm not entirely sure. I think Greg may be able to address that, but again, we just can't get into Northport right now. So we're going to try another route. I think we're going to head back towards 75, maybe either go north or south, and see if we can find another route into either Northport or potentially the Fort Myers area, Cape Coral. We're working to see if we can get any closer. But of course, we'll keep you updated. We'll be here throughout the morning, and we'll give you any updates as they become available. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Heather. I did want to mention those pictures that we were showing. That was the Northport Police First In Tactical Team. Northport Police had been saying that they wanted to wait before they sent that crew out, but then they said they tweeted that the winds had died down enough for those teams to go out. Heather mentioned that there were people standing in front of their neighborhoods hoping to be rescued some of the floodwaters, so no doubt they'll see some of those teams coming to help them.
Yeah, 100%, because now, as she said the water seems like it's starting to recede a little bit, so there's probably more of an opportunity for those emergency crews to go out there.
Yeah, that's certainly good news. Heather, be safe on the way there. Tell us again the road that you're traveling to get to Northport, and you're having some challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are on 777. I don't know if that's a state road or a county road, to be honest. My apologies. But it is also known as River Road. And it's essentially the exit to Northport. So you take River Road to US 41, and then you would take US 41 into Northport, which I think is a south direction road. Let's see. I'm looking at my map here.
But you're seeing lots of flooding on the way.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You're seeing lots of flooding on the way in neighborhoods. Describe exactly what you're seeing. Is the flooding that you're seeing in neighborhoods or just on the side of that road?
Yeah, so the road itself has some flooding. We were able to get around because some of the road on one side or the other is not in the flooded waters, if that makes sense.
And in terms
so you kind of have to navigate through.
In terms of how high the water is, can you see any landmarks that you can describe to our viewers how high the water is in the area you are?
You know, it's hard to say. I would definitely say off the road towards the neighborhood, probably a couple feet. On the roadway itself, just a few inches in certain spots. We can see the roadway, let's put it that way. I can see the markings on the roadway. But again, as you go a little bit off the roadway, I would say it's maybe, a foot, 2 feet, potentially 3 feet.
Heather, if you get a chance, I know that you're the passenger in the car, so we want to make sure that you're safe, though. But if you can, snap some pictures and send those back to us. We would like to be able to see and then show people what you're seeing on the road there. It's going to take you a while to get to Northport. I'm sure because you're having to slow down a little bit. Are you seeing any other cars on that road, or hopefully you guys are the only ones?
Yes, we are seeing other cars. Many of them have turned around just like us because they couldn't go any further. Some cars have gone through. It depends on the vehicle. So we've seen trucks going through. We saw a Jeep go through, but a lot of the lower lying cars have turned around like us to avoid going in the flooded water.
Yeah, because you never know exactly what's in that water or how deep it is.
That's exactly what Greg was just talking about, the person who got stuck, Yeah. Heather, please stay safe out there. And as soon as you can get in any pictures and video, we'd love to be able to turn that around for everyone as well.
I can imagine the further south she gets, the more damage she'll be able to see, if she's even able to get, that far south.
Which is so hard to even wrap your mind around that. It's almost like those people are stuck right now.
I know. Yeah. But again, authorities, first responders, as soon as they determine that it's safe enough, they're out. They're out assessing the damage. We showed you the road, McGregor Road, leading up to the Sanibel Island Causeway. That's just ripped apart. It's no longer there anymore. We don't know how many of those roads we might encounter as we get further, south in the areas that were hardest hit. And so that's what first responders are trying to decide. They're going out to determine, to assess the damage and see if they can actually get to people.
And I know at some points, fire rescue crews, emergency responders using things like jet skis in order to get people, because that's how deep the floodwater is right now.
Yeah, it's a desperate situation. Sarasota County, of course, was a little bit north of where the storm came ashore, but still experienced some, gusty winds, some heavy rain. We do want to check back in with Jada Williams. She was posted up at a shelter there all night, about 300 people in that shelter with her as well.
And Jada, I believe your last report, you were showing us some damage around a fence area that was very close to that shelter. What are you seeing right now?
Well, guys, I actually stepped away from that area to show you something that we found that just really goes to show you how strong this storm may have been. Now, I'm here near Sarasota Bay Club, and you can see behind me that there is a truck that appeared to have flipped over. And in its path, it took down the wall to it, a fire hydrant, a pedestrian stop sign, just so many different things in its path. Now, the keys are still inside that truck. You can see that the windshield was broken near the driver's side. I spoke to a woman who who's staying at the inn at Sarasota Bay Club. She said that it happened right outside her window. She heard all of it. It happened around 7:30 or 8 o'clock last night. She said she remembers hearing that wind and thinking it was very strong. Now, if you recall, around 7:30, 8 o'clock last night, those winds were so strong that emergency officials weren't able to respond to any calls at all. That's because once it hit 45 miles per hour, those wind speeds, they ceased all calls themselves, because it's just not safe for anyone on the road. And she said she heard it. It was a loud boom, a very scary, loud noise. And she came out to check, and sure enough, there was this truck right here. Now, we are still working to figure out who the owner of this truck is, or even the condition of the person in that truck. As of right now, a lot of people have come out. They're at the buildings that are nearby. Again, this is Sarasota Bay Club. They say they have no idea. They just saw it or they heard it when it happened. Once they were able to come out and check, there was no one here. But we will continue to look into it for you. But I'm just going to give you one last look at this. I mean, this speaks to the sheer volume of that wind strength that came off of Hurricane Ian last night. And hopefully the person who was driving that truck is okay. But for now, reporting live in Sarasota, Jada Williams, ABC Action News.
Jada, it just takes your breath away. You said the keys are still in the truck, so we assume that someone was driving that truck. Did that neighbor who heard that, did she happen to see anything? Was it, did she see anything? Anyone exit the truck?
She said when she looked out the window, it was raining so hard and she wasn't able to actually gather any of that. She just really could hear it. And she said it happened around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Once it was safer, she came out and was shocked really to see just the sheer magnitude of the wreck that happened out here.
Have you seen any first responders in the area?
Not a whole lot of first responders on the drive over here from where we were, more in the Sarasota Springs, Fruitville neighborhood. A couple have been driving by, but as you can imagine, there is a lot of damage out here. There's a lot of stops to make. So at this particular spot, have not, but on the drive over, we have seen a couple. They're making a lot of stops. We've seen a lot of damage along the way. We've seen trees down. We've seen trees split in half. Luckily, none of them that we've seen so far have fallen onto houses or fallen onto cars, but there's definitely a lot of damage as you drive by. There are trees that are blocking the road, blocking driveways, power lines that are down. It's truly not safe out here if you don't have to be out driving in it. Just give those first responders, those power line workers a chance to get out and fix all of this before you get on the road and do any surveying or go anywhere unnecessary.
Jada, I'm just wondering if your photographer, I believe it's Jason out with you, if we can get maybe a little bit of a wider shot or kind of pan to see exactly where this is on the road. It's kind of on a sidewalk near a big intersection. Okay, and it looks like we see.
Yeah, so it's at the roundabout here at Sarasota Bay Club. The roundabout it's right at the end of it, right when you come around that turn.
And of course,
and I'll let Jason get
lots of
wider
spectators
view.
too. Yeah, lots of spectators.
You see the truck just right on the sidewalk there. Wow.
It's incredible. Again, if you're just joining us, Jada just happened to come across this. She said the keys are still in the truck. She doesn't have a whole lot of information, but we just pray that the person who was driving this vehicle is okay, was able to get out okay. A neighbor heard this. Jada, describe exactly what that neighbor says he or she heard.
Yeah, she said she's staying at the inn at Sarasota Bay Club. It happened right out her window. She said that what really drew her to it was the loud noise that it made. She said it happened around 7:30 or 8 o'clock, right when those wind speeds to her were really starting to pick up, and she was starting to get nervous about the storm. And as I mentioned earlier, again, once it hit 45 miles per hour, I'm not quite sure what that sound was either that we just heard there. But again, once those wind speeds hit 45 miles per hour during Hurricane Ian, first responders stopped responding. That's because it wasn't safe for them to be out on the road either. So that timeline would definitely check out with an inability to dial 911 and get some help.
Yeah, that's exactly why they were telling people that they needed to be where they were going to be early enough, that some people in that area had been evacuated. Greg D, when you see a truck like that flipped over in that area, Jada said it happened around 8 o'clock at night. That wind, strong enough to pick up a truck and flip it.
That could have been a result of the back eyewall.
I don't think it's, there we go.
That could have been the result of that back eye wall moving through the storm. We can go back with the radar. I can take the radar back. That's going to be about 12 hours. So 12 hours ago in that Sarasota area, this is what we were looking at. This is 8 o'clock this evening. If you guys want to take Max 1, you're more than welcome to. There it is. So this is Sarasota. They were under one of these heavy rain bands. And remember, we talked about this. It was this back eye wall that was really strong. Now, you know, the car itself, it is possible. It could have been, the weather could have been a contributing factor in an accident in that area as well. And that person probably could have also abandoned that vehicle and gone to safety. There's nothing you can really do when you're in a hurricane and you get into an accident. So hopefully everyone there is okay. But it could have been wind related. There could have been a quick spin up in the storm as well. I mean, you know, we never really know until we'll talk to the driver of that car. But what it really shows you is just what you're going to be finding out there, and that is just a combination of all kinds of issues on the roads. What our reporters are telling you this morning, stay home. If you have no valid reason to go out right now, do not do it. You know, the needing to get a gallon of milk is not a necessity right now. It is a convenience issue, and you really should be waiting until we have an assessment of what's going on in the area and if it's safe, if the road is clear. I'm continuing to get photos. You guys have been amazing on Instagram, by the way. I'm getting so many messages. And the most common thing that we're getting is trees down. Trees down, branches, and power lines. And that is a combination that you just want to be so careful about as you get out there this morning. So this was the view in Sarasota last night. The data coming in today and the pictures that I'm getting, there's Lakeland right there. There's a shot from Chad. There you go. Looks like an accident. Tree down. Maybe this driver didn't have time to stop in time. There's one right there. And here's the thing here. These trees right now, some of them may not be down, but the ground there, you see that tree wasn't snapped. That was too much water and wind, and the tree was uprooted. And even this morning, with a 50-mile-an-hour wind gust, that one 50-mile-an-hour wind gust could topple a tree that was basically teetering at the point of doing so 6 hours ago in the storm. So even getting out this morning, you saw Larissa report to us this morning, there were strong wind gusts around Bayshore. We are not out of the danger of trees getting uprooted, falling over, branches getting loose. And this is what could happen. This is what could happen this morning as you're trying to get out and about, unnecessarily traveling around the region. Yes, there are some folks out there that have to hit the road. There are emergency responders and other officials. Let those only be the only folks that are out there this morning as Ian pulls away. The current view of the radar, I do want to show you this. That was last night. We are clear in terms of rainfall. And as I'll tell you later in my next update, the weather will be improving nicely and steadily through today. Just wait a few more hours, please, guys.
I think it's so important what Greg just said about, you know, the tree may not have fallen yet, but the ground is so saturated, the wind was so strong that you really don't know what can happen. So again, we have nicer weather in the future. Just stay put for a while.
Absolutely. You can see the tree, the entire root system pulling up, you know,
Yeah.
taking up the sidewalk with it. And, you know, we don't know the situation all around the Bay Area at this point.
Right.
So, you know, it is best to just let first responders go out and assess the situation before you go out and walk around. Law enforcement, that's the whole reason that law enforcement is urging you to stay at home this morning as utility crews deal with the downed power lines, of course, and tree limbs. We've got, you know, so many customers, so many people that don't have power in the Bay Area.
Right, we're really in the dark right now for so many people. So we want to get on over to our traffic anchor, Jazz Williams. She's monitoring a major road closure in Central Florida. Jazz, what's going on there?
Yeah, good morning, ladies. It's for our friends in Orange County. So the Florida Turnpike between mile marker 254 and 267. That's about 13 miles. It's a span of 13 miles. It is closed, and that's due to pretty significant flooding. So, I mean, I'm just reiterating what everyone has been saying all morning. If you can stay put right now, please do it. It's smarter, it's safer, not just for you, but again, for those first responders who would have to get to you if there's an issue. But again, Florida Turnpike between mile marker 254 and 267. I'm going to get more special ideas on exactly where that is very shortly, but I just want you to know that that is closed due to significant flooding. Meanwhile, the Sunshine Skyway remains closed right now. It's been closed for some time, but it remains closed due to debris right now on the Sunshine Skyway. So you are going to not be able to access that, at least for right now. We'll keep you updated on when it will be back open, but for right now, it does remain closed. Typically, I will take down all of the pop-ups that we see on our map, just because I like to be more specific when I point them out. But right now there are so many incidents and sections where they're still trying to figure out exactly what's going on, whether it be handling those down power lines or the debris, broken branches, things like that. So even though the sun is starting to rise and you can get eyes on what's going on, right now, it's just smarter to not go out there and do any exploring. Stay home, continue to limit all non-essential travel, like Greg mentioned. Milk for your Honey Nut Cheerios, you might just have to eat it dry. I mean, at least for right now. Give us some time, give those first responders some time to assess all of the damage, especially where there are stoplights that are out, because that can cause crashes. So you need to give the emergency personnel the time to navigate what's going on, assess the damage, and then of course we're going to keep you updated. I recommend you following us on Twitter at Tampa Bay Traffic. That's where we're posting everything that pops up, just as it pops up, in case you don't see me on air or somebody can't mention it right away. You will see it there at Tampa Bay Traffic. So make sure you give us a follow. Guys?
All right, thank you so much, Jazz. We've been monitoring the conditions in Polk County. Of course, that county still experiencing Tropical Storm Ian. We checked in with Kyle Berger and Kevin Lewis, also Chad Mills in Polk County. All of them still reporting the wind, the strong wind, but at least the rain had stopped the last time we checked in.
Yeah, I believe it was Kyle the last shot. The whole fence was just ripped up. We're seeing a lot of damage in the Polk County area. And we now want to get out to our Kevin Lewis. He's in the Davenport area on the road, actually traveling to Disney Springs. Kevin, what are you guys seeing right now?
Yeah, the most magical place on earth. I would say that Kyle Berger and I rented it out, but that's not the case. It's a ghost town on the roads around all the Disney entrances. You see a couple of cars on the highway. That's, I think, the third one we've seen since we left Davenport, other than a Polk County sheriff's car. It's kind of eerie. The parks are empty. The park is closed today, of course, for obvious reasons. There's some debris on the ground. There are a lot of branches and small, palm fronds. A couple of signs, street signs or stop signs that are kind of half bent over. So not a lot of wind damage, it looks like, but the rain has picked up probably in the last hour. Kyle showed you the fence that was busted up in the residential neighborhood earlier, and there was kind of a calm there for about half an hour. But the rain has picked up, and there is a power outage. Once you get within a mile or two circle of the Disney area, the stoplights were out, and businesses didn't look like they had power, because a couple of blocks before them, businesses still had their signs lit up, but no one was in them. They were closed. But as you get closer to Disney and in the area where we are, Disney Springs, it looks like there was a power outage of some kind, because multiple intersections didn't have stoplights operating in them.
Kyle, are you seeing, Kevin, I'm sorry, are you seeing any flooding? I see the ponding on the road, but have you seen any flooding in that area?
Not any flooding. The water is a little bit high, depending on where you drive. We haven't been in many low-lying areas. Right now, we just got a little bit of splash, but it's kind of I don't want to say comes out of nowhere. Not anything that's